Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Mind High. This is Z.
This is Hasban.
This is Shaz.
And we have a returning guest, Hasban, and a new guest today, Hazel. She's here to talk about biology and chemistry and physics. You do biomed, right?
Yes, I did my major in biomedical and chemical engineering from IIT.
Nice. So yeah, there's a lot of things that within this podcast, like on our off time, we always talk about how how the future is going to change and what are the fields are going up to the leading to that, and we always talk about with Ray Carswell and some of the things that he's doing it. So I thought it'd be interesting to bring you on here, because there's a lot of things that that we just don't have the knowledge that you probably will. So I guess we can discuss some of those topics, and maybe you can provide some insights from your field.
And before we get into anything, so you're in biomedical engineering, and I mean, you can just tell from the name that's biology, medicine, and engineering. But I think I'm curious as to what specifically you do. So
basically, biomedical engineering has a vast terms of roles. Mine particularly in the pharmaceutical industry. So I work with drugs and pretty much formulating different types of drugs and its interaction with the primary container that it's going to be filled in. So making it safer for the end patient to use, you have to make sure that the interaction between the drug and the container is matched together perfectly so it doesn't cause any adverse reaction to the patient itself, such as degradation of the drug itself because it actually interacted with glass or different types of polymers, plastics, and so forth. So you have to make the interaction in a homogeneous environment so that when you're injecting into the patient, you're getting the actual drug and nothing leaching into the drug from the container itself.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So are you working on designing containers that?
Yeah, so it's kind of a part and part. You have to do. I'm actually in the sector where I do the risk analysis that's associated with the components and the interaction of that components with the drug specifically. So we come with my projects. We come with a scope of list of drugs that we will have, and you want to have this container, for example, a pre-filled syringe. And my job is to tell you that, hey, based on the interaction of these polymers as well as the drug content, the risk of using this container with these types of drugs is low. It's never minimized, but it's low. I mean, it's always minimized as possible, but it's not non-existent. There's always some risk. So my job is to tell you this could work if you actually have these polymers with these types of drugs.
Interesting.
Or any type of like plastics and so glass and so forth.
Kind of bouncing off that, it seems like everything in the medical anything with medicine, there's always that huge list of like side effects, right? When we see those commercials and they just read off in like the last 30 seconds, it just blows your mind how many side effects.
I feel like that's the majority of the commercial.
Right at the end.
That's absolutely right.
So I'm wondering, if you've heard of like probably like smart medicine, which is something that seems like is the future of medicine, where they're talking about like programmable medicine, which kind of almost gets into like nanotechnology, right? Where they're creating these little microchips which kind of go into your body and they just kind of stay there. And then instead of you or me kind of figuring out what dose to take or when to take it, because apparently most people don't take the right dose. So I think I read a stat like over 50% of the people take their medicine incorrectly. So this medicine, if it's programmed, it just sits in your body and it kind of gives you the dose when you're supposed to take it.
Holy crap.
I think you're talking, like one of the already marketed product is insulin. That goes along with what you're saying, is that they actually have in a box attached to your, basically your waist, and has some sort of insulin programmable to be induced into your bloodstream at a given amount of time.
Right.
But I have to warn you that every technology comes with variants, and even though people, like you said, are not taking the accurate dose, to build that accuracy is on a very small volume. It has its own tolerance. So if you're going to, for example, deliver something within 0.3 ml margin in a 1 ml syringe, for example, the dose accuracy of that is like 50% in and out, based on plus or minus, based on how much you get in. So I think what mostly in the industry that I work with focus on, if you did indeed get less or high, what are the possible repercussions based on that? And if that's low, then you getting a higher or lower dose may not be that big of a deal, or is negligible.
So how much? So in this industry, how much do we focus on side effects? Like, of course, we're getting the medicine to take care of the whatever the main thing they're trying to fix. But how much do we in that industry focus on side effects and minimizing that?
I don't think I'm the right person to ask this question, because my job is more towards making the product work with the container. But if you want my opinion, I would say that the side effects are listed because of variation in the human population.
Right.
You have a different type of weight, a different type of genome. I mean, we can go in so many different degrees of variation that it affects everyone differently.
Differently, right.
So just because it works for majority of the people, like dopamine, people, neurobiological kind of medications, they all are dependent upon how your biological is built up. So that's why I think they overly emphasize side effects to show that, hey, things can happen because may have seen it in their research, but majority kind of like deals with it, where there's minority that actually has those severe interactions.
Yeah, there's just too many variables and too many different type of people that you can make a perfect pill or drug for everyone. So I think the goal should be doing it for majority. And listening to you talk about explaining the things that you do, before I wouldn't care why we have these, but the more I guess the more you learn and the more you research on things, I think it's important that / amazing that there are these fields and people doing these type of things, because all it is improving human life.
Right.
And then it's amazing how your job is just that container itself, and how that could definitely impact the drugs that we're putting in our bodies. And when we buy these things from the shelves, I don't think no one really pays attention to it.
There's a lot that goes into making sure that product has a life expectancy, that you actually are delivering the right product in the right time. With that comes so many stability testing that we do to make sure that if we actually have a shelf life associated with that product, it delivers you that true quantity that you are seeking within that time frame.
Right.
Just in that alone is so much research to make sure that, forget about the side effects, just making the product work itself. I mean, there's so much research and so much dependency that's involved in making sure that your stability testing has some degree of success.
Right.
So
and like leading up to his podcast, I've been thinking about like a week and a half or two, like I think we talked about it before, like standing on our shoulders of giants. Like your field is called like biomed, so it's taking physics, which is the study of nature, right, and then a biology, study of life, and chemistry as well, right, if I'm not wrong, with the study of chemicals. And so like so many people before us had to figure out how nature works, what are the rules of nature, and how we could discover things and invent from it. So this is leading from like beginning of time, everything that we discovered up till now, you're using in your field at least, like what we have discovered and how you can utilize that to increase or improve human life, which is just fascinating how everything, if you just flash forward real fast, how it comes down to doing you doing what you're doing at the moment.
No, I mean, we came a far long way. Just knowing from where we were, like 1920s, for example, the things in the medicine was completely different. I mean, people were at war, things were just you can even like heal a wound basically to make sure that the person was able to recover from it because of the exposure and antibiotics at that time. We're just in that point of research. So coming now, we have increased so much, and we're so beyond. I mean, people are living to like 90s and 100s because of the expandable medicine research that we have done to make sure their life expectancy increases.
You know, being online, so you get exposed to so many different ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's actually a group that believes that medicine and all this is not good for us because they want natural selection to just kind of take care of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So they say if somebody gets sick, you know, almost let them die because they're not supposed to be here anymore, and you just let it happen the natural way. So, I mean, even though that's a very extreme case, we can kind of see that with antibiotics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a doctor started prescribing it for everything. And now we have people that are almost immune to its effects, and that when you actually need them, they're not that effective anymore.
Yeah, I think you're talking about penicillin. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's just biology, because we have been exposed to penicillin for so long period of time. We have created the community that we have created, being exposed to the viruses and bacteria that actually that are actually killed by penicillin, for example, are no longer effective. And that's because the bacteria itself has found a way to kill the virus itself, to kill the actual penicillin drug itself. And the way that works is that what you have is a bacteria which actually came up with a really cool way of surviving. And this goes into that technology about CRISPR. Basically, what happens is that in a bacteria, if it actually is targeted by a virus, it incorporates the DNA of the virus into its chromosome. And it's in segments, it's a very small pieces here and there, and it just incorporates it into its chromosome. And what happens is that it triggers a DNA kind of replication. So it pretty much calls in all this good stuff to come in and pretty much replicate that particular segment that actually extracted from the virus into an RNA. And the RNA goes in with this Cas9 protein and pretty much targets the DNA of the virus, where it actually replicates pretty much exact segments of the base sequence that the virus, the segment that was extracted from the virus, and pretty much cuts it off. So when you're cutting off certain DNA sequences, you're pretty much killing the entire genome. And that's how the DNA pretty much saves itself. The bacteria saves itself. So this is kind of a technology that, you know, people have realized over time. That there was a recent study that was done. I don't think it's that recent. I think it was in, I can't quote exactly, but in probably in early 90s, I would say 1990s, where they actually came up with this study. And they came to a realization that if bacteria can do this, why can't we? Where we can actually use the same kind of concept and pretty much, you know, solve all these diseases that are like genetically related. And the cool thing about this is that this whole thing I just told you about, where they actually cut off specific sequences of a DNA, is programmable.
That's crazy.
Sweet.
Yeah, so it's amazing where this study just like, it's a huge industry altogether, where you can just go in and figure out, like, for example, how a Huntington disease affects you, and it's a chromosome defective chromosome. And if you can find out the sequence that actually impacted because of a genetic mutation, you can pretty much program this RNA and build those sequence in it, where it actually takes this protein, brings in the RNA, attaches to that chromosome, to a genetically mutated chromosome, exact sequence, and cuts it off. And the idea is that when it does indeed cuts it off, your DNA itself has a healing process. It somehow knows something is missing, and you have to go in and fill that gap in. And the idea behind that is that if it does indeed fill back, it will fill back the normal cycle of the sequence, a base sequence that the chromosome should go. Yeah.
It's just this, you know, I mean, earlier when we talked about how, you know, how we got up to this point, and then some of the things that you're talking about, it's also crazy, you know, where the future is headed. Mm-hmm. Just by these studies that you kind of mentioned, also CRISPR, I kind of wanted to, you know, dive into that a little bit and see, because that is pretty much a game changer now, right?
Absolutely. Because
it's made, what is it called, DNA sequencing a lot cheaper to do, right? That they were showing.
Absolutely, yes. It was really expensive in the beginning, but this has really shortened anything expensive comes with time.
Right.
If you're investing so much time into building a product, it's going to be an expensive
yeah,
product.
Always in the beginning.
Right.
And I was reading also like where it's so huge that, you know, people are using it in high school. That's how cheap it is. Like, you know, you could so the idea is whatever the DNA would be, you can just go in there and cut a part of, you know, segment off and then program it with whatever you would want. So so this could be effective in plants. You know, if you wanted to change the genetics of certain plants or human beings, or if there's like cancer that you mentioned or different diseases, you can cut certain parts of the bacteria off and replace it with like an antidote, or replace it with a different sequence that will fight the virus off, right? So in a way, the future is that this could also cure all of cancer. Is that true, or?
So I would say that it's still being studied. It is definitely the future,
right?
But cancer is a different ball game altogether. It's because you actually have these cells that do not stop replicating itself.
So they don't, when it comes time to die, they don't die, right? They just stay alive and they just start replicating.
Right. So it's not really dead.
Oh, true. Yeah, it's not dead.
It's just, you know how
it ages.
Our normal process for a cell would be that, you know, RNA and DNA. DNA comes in together, replicates itself into another DNA, and then this whole cell cycle happens, mitosis and all that stuff, and then it pretty much gets into two cells.
Right.
So that's how you form cells. The problem with cancer is that when that mutation occurs, that mutation is occurring in both cells. And that keeps processing itself, and that whole segment of like triggering yourself to stop replicating never occurs. So there's a time associated with each cell and when it's going to replicate.
Right.
But the cancer cells don't have that. That's why I think you're getting the idea they're sick cells.
Right.
So they're aging, but they're also sick cells where they're just multiplying over time and turns into a tumor or into cancerous cells when a cell just breaks off from a tumor and goes to travel to different bodies, and then you have
because they have a lifespan too, right? So after, there's certain months after you have pretty much all new blood in your body,
or wasn't it like
a period of
every
time?
7 years, like there's not a single cell that was in your body that was there 7 years ago?
Something like that.
Like it renews and you're like a completely new person with new cells.
Can you look that up, Shaz? Like I forgot there's a lifespan, right? Where it just
the life of the cell, or just that's something I'm not familiar with exactly what the time frame is.
Yeah, I forgot.
But you will be continuously making cells, so I'm assuming that you would have. Well, I'm not assuming. I'm sure that you will have new cells by a certain period of time. Yeah.
Yeah, we replace every cell in the body every 7 years or every 10 years. Okay. Oh wait, it's wrong. So the statement that we replace. Hold on.
It's a myth that I read.
Well, I think the idea is the new cell we're talking about is the fact that it has the genome of your body, like, you know, how you're built, with the specific genes that were transferred to you through your parents.
Right.
It's just a new form of it. That's what it is. It's just not like it's a completely new cell with its own new program.
Oh, but interesting. I thought I thought it would just be completely new, but I guess I was wrong.
Really look into that. Yeah, maybe it is a myth.
No,
you're saying that's wrong. So I'm trying to.
So what's the truth? Look how
hard
it is.
Each cell has a different life expectancy. So I'm trying to figure that out.
So you're saying the cells are just renewing. They're the same cell, but they're renewing, but it's not like a completely different cell that's coming from somewhere else outside of your body?
No, absolutely not. There's no contact with the outside world. It's a virus, or it's some sort of a foreign body. What your cells are doing is that when you do need to build a new cell, your brain triggers a reaction for your cells to replicate. That replication process builds a new cell. That new cell is just the same cell you had before, just newer.
But where does it? So like where? I'm thinking of mass, but like where would it get that extra, you know, because when they do split, they end up being the same size, right?
They do end up being the same size.
So then they are getting some sort of a mass, if you will, or you know what I mean? Because if something has this much area than if you just divide it by 2.
But where are you going with mass? I'm just a little confused.
No, so what I'm trying to say, like, there has to be some sort of new that is being added to it. No, just if I'm picturing the cells being, because the way they show it.
Oh, the only thing I can say that what's new that's being added is the actual process of fighting something new. Like, for example, if you were fighting a virus or any type of bacteria and your body overcame that virus, that is because the same process kind of occurred. You have built T-bodies against those viruses, and those T-bodies are they're actually part of the white blood cells, not like red blood cells. Red blood cells are all about making sure you're getting the oxygen and all that, and your white blood cells are all about your immune system. So there's different...
So it depends which cell you're talking about. If you're talking about red blood cells, they're there for about 4 months. White blood cells live on for a year. Brain cells live almost the entire life because you're talking about the neurons, I guess.
Yeah.
And then like sperm cells, for example, only live for 2 or 3 days. So that's why it's basically a myth because there's just too much calculation. It depends on what cell you're talking about.
I mean, it's not a myth if you specify what cell.
But there's some cells that live the entire lifetime, so it can't be a whole new you.
I see, yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
Myth busted, right?
Yeah, myth busters.
Right.
I love how I was reading that sentence and I
That's
realized
awesome.
at the end, it is wrong. I didn't read that part. I was like,
It started off by saying it's true, and it's like, wait, no.
This might be a false memory, but I remember Neil deGrasse Tyson saying this.
So you actually believed it.
Yeah. Memory implant, here we go.
Someone credible said something like that.
I believe anything.
I've heard that before too.
Because I recall those same numbers. But did you guys ever watch Magic School Bus growing up?
Of course.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Magic School Bus?
I think so. I wasn't born here, right?
That's true. I think you guys came in the 2000s, right? Or
2001, yeah.
Yeah, so this was like, it's on Netflix now. So I put it on sometimes in the background for my daughter. But it's basically a science show, and then there's a class they have a magic school bus that can practically do anything, go outer space. There's one episode when you were talking about the red blood cells that reminded me where they take a field trip into one of the students got sick. So they sit inside the magic school bus, and it shrinks down to
I remember this episode.
Yeah, into like a cell size, and they go inside the kid's body. And what they were trying to show was what's the purpose of like the red blood cell, and it's pretty much they showed them as like cars. So like they go into the lung, so the lung takes in the oxygen, and then the oxygen gets into the cell, and then the heart takes it and pumps it into all parts of the body that needs oxygen, because our muscles cannot move without oxygen. So that image always sticks into my mind, even when I'm working out. Like when you're getting tired, whichever muscle you're working out is getting really tight, I guess. It's just then what your body realizes that, and then it pumps all the oxygen there, because that's where you need most of the energy to, be functional. Just random thought that came in my head.
I think that's the only episode of Magic Bus that I remember.
Yeah, you remember seeing that?
I remember that. Yeah.
I always love that. Always clicks in my head every time I think
that
about
one is the one you remember because that's one of the episodes that like you watched in science class, like fourth grade.
I'm sure they probably showed it as well.
I know I watched. That's where I watched it.
Or also, that's how memory works, right? It could be in my mind like forever. I could have watched 100 episodes, but he says something and it just triggers that memory.
Right.
And I'm like, that's the only episode I remember. There's like 99 in the back of my head.
Yeah.
But going back to CRISPR and what you were saying about gene editing. So gene editing has been here for a long time, right? But so...
a couple of decades, yeah.
So how is CRISPR different? I mean, is it just easier to use and it's cheaper, or is it is it a revolution?
It is definitely a revolution. It's because of its precise targeting.
I'm sorry to cut you up. Can we explain to the listeners? I don't know. Did we explain correctly? What exactly it is? So like you said, like in the last 20 decades or whatever, they've been trying to do DNA sequencing, and then I think we kind of talked about how this new. I don't even know what it stands for, CRISPR. But.
Oh, it's a mouthful. Yeah. Clustered, regularly interspaced, short, palindromic repeats.
I have no idea what that means. I have no idea what that means.
What?
It's basically like short segmented base sequence that are integrated into your DNA and is actually followed by a space. So it's not part of your DNA particularly. It's actually extracted from DNAs that you have been exposed to from foreign bodies in your system. That's what I went back to. Like, if I can go back, the whole bacteria and the study of bacteria and how it can actually fight off viruses and foreign body is by absorbing the foreign body or viruses segments DNA into its chromosome. And basically what it does is that it actually takes the DNA or the segmented DNA it has absorbed and makes a replication of that DNA into an RNA. An RNA, what it does is that it actually travels to the virus DNA and pretty much uses a protein called Cas9 protein, where it finds the exact sequence that the DNA was extrapolated from and places that RNA right there, so that the protein can pretty much snap off the DNA in that specific segment. And of course, if you do multiple of these segments of a DNA, it's eventually going to denature and die.
Right.
And that's how it gets you can fight off these viruses.
So before it was really hard to target specific locations. With this, it's gotten a lot easier, right?
I mean, bacteria is already doing this.
Right.
They're already doing this. They know exactly where to go.
Yeah.
And that's all based on the genetic manipulation of your RNA.
Would you say the bacteria is alive then, or are they, like, how do we, like, are they consciously just aware that once again our body doesn't know to attack? So the DNA is just information, right? I guess. Mm-hmm. So it knows that this is my code and I need to go to a specific location to multiply and survive, if you will. Mm-hmm. But can we go as far as saying, or are these things alive, or?
Bacteria?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bacteria is an alive thing, just like you and I. They're just a singular, cell versus you a multi-organism. So
they're just one cell where they're only limited to this amount of information, but thinking about our brain, since we have more cells, we're allowed to think more. Is that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that, you build upon that. I mean, from a singular cell to multi-organism, you have definitely more depth into how you function versus going down to that microscopic level. But then again, everything is based on, I guess, when you build on that, you build abstract.
Right.
You add abstract to it. So you can relate to, I guess, a bacteria in terms of your cellular functionality.
Right.
But I don't think the bacteria can relate to you based on how you function as a human being. Right. So
it's insane. Like, where did the first cells start? You know what I mean? Like, it just, I'm just picturing like a DNA. It's a double helix, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just a bunch of codes. So did someone compute this shit, or like did it just one day?
We're all robots.
I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? Like, we just see ourselves as just humans, but we're like a whole universe in ourselves, right? Yeah. We have a whole ecosystem of bacteria, cells, proteins, all doing their thing. Right. And then it all leads up to us.
And we're not even consciously aware of those things happening as we're sitting and talking. Mm-hmm. There's a whole ecosystem in our body that's, like those bloods are traveling, taking the oxygen, taking it into my brain, my hands as I'm moving. Mm-hmm. I'm not even aware of those things. The only thing I'm aware of is just what's going on in my head right now.
Your conscience.
Yeah. So like there's these things that I'm not even in control of. So
that's what's keeping you alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those small things like cells and such, like we were talking about, those aren't conscious, right? But they are still programmed to carry out their tasks.
So there's just a code.
Well, that's how that's how human beings are differentiated from other living things, because we have a conscience.
Right.
And that's how we are able to advance in this kind of environment, because we're extremely complex creatures, I would say, because we have so much different, like the way our brain functions and different partitions have its own job or its own area of expertise, makes us so much more different than any other living thing.
Good. I just got worried. I was like, I'm dumber than a bacteria. Yeah. It knows CRISPR and everything. Like, what?
No, I mean, the thing is that, like, that's why it's so important to look into that singularity, because at the end of the day, what's happening at that microscopic level is so much more important than you being as a whole, because you, like he said, you're not aware of all these functions and different types of interactions that are happening in your body that is making you live.
Yeah.
Pretty much. You're breathing right now is because they're working all night and day to make you know, wake up in the day and just...
Yeah, it
terrible.
is. It's
They're working
Don't feel that bad. You're feeding it too. So.
All right.
Are they slaves then?
What sort of thing is
my
it? That's
God.
crazy, right? We did not build ourselves.
Yeah.
We just were born and we had all these incredible systems just working already for us.
Right.
And so are they slaves? I don't know. I mean, are we slaves as well? If you think about little cells, aren't they carrying out their task for like a bigger, higher level, which is us?
Bigger purpose.
Yeah, for a higher purpose.
Yeah.
But they have no idea that their cells and proteins are working for us.
Yeah.
And we think that we're in control of our lives and we're doing all these, but we might be
We're
working
for a higher purpose as well. I just got happy. I'm just picturing like, you know, maybe we're in somebody else's organism or universe, whatever it is. It could be a living
Donald
thing
Trump's.
We're Donald Trump's here.
Hasban has something cool to put in here.
Go ahead.
So there's really like two of us. There's one that's the autonomic nervous system, which is all the stuff that's happening that we're not even controlling. And then there's the part of us that is all the stuff that we are controlling. So we're only like, what, 30% of us? What, 40%? Yeah, because there's things you can control. You can see, you can look you can look somewhere, you can look in a direction. But all the stuff that's happening inside, you really have no control of that.
Over, right?
Or are we controlling that too?
Well, yeah, again.
To a point, not to, I guess, like what you feed it and stuff like that, right?
Or is it controlling you?
I believe in that.
I do too.
And I also think that, you know, you said that the 30%, you know, we control.
No, I just made up a number, by the way.
Oh,
but
okay.
you know, but most
fact checker.
Very good fact checker.
Yeah, but
I win.
but most of our functions we actually can't control. But now, actually, what you were going into, there is some research to say we can actually control that too.
No, I wasn't. Actually, I was agreeing with that factor that you think that you control your body. You think you control your conscience even as well. But the matter of fact is that you don't.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God! Here we go.
We all agree.
Yes.
Your mind, like, I mean, just going into that statement you made, you know, false memories. I mean, the fact that you can actually convince someone to believe in something that never even happened.
Yeah.
And, you know, and just go with that flow and go with the energy and your attitude towards it. You will make your mind believe it.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that's why I think that your mind kind of controls that aspect of you to think a certain way, to act a certain way, to react a certain way.
Right.
It's not you doing it by yourself.
Yeah, it's just an illusion that we have that we're doing it, and I think part of it is, and then I think we talked about it before, and this is where kind of free will kicks in, and part of it, the reason it's doing it, I guess again goes, to a higher purpose, and we do this illusion to survive because we needed these skills to be, you know, adapt to our earlier environment, you know, when we became consciously aware, and how do we survive?
I think that the surviving part is just pure genius in my point, and also a great coincidence.
Right.
Because, you know, as evolution takes place, you survival of the fittest, right? You break it or you make it kind of a deal. But we kind of, in my opinion, we have broken the cycle of evolution. Because we got self-aware and because we were able to, like that's the discussion I was having, you know, when you were at in our house,
Right.
the fact that we were able to pretty much provide for ourselves,
Right.
you know, grow food, for instance, and control that factor of ourselves where you're cooking meat because it's going to metabolize faster.
Right.
All these features come into being able to advance us.
Right.
How that happened is miraculous.
Yeah,
They even say that us eating meat is what led to the expansion of our brain.
Yeah.
Or
Cooked
cooking meat.
Yeah.
Cooking
cooked
meat. Cooking meat. Thanks
Because
for fact checking me.
Yeah, because the fact is that when you cook meat, you're actually having your body not use that much energy to break it down.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
You're just
That's
pretty
cool.
much right. Yeah, because the fact is, like, you know, a lion or any other predators out there, they actually just bite into a raw meat, eat it, and they actually have to have like some sort of period where they just stay stable, stay calm, where they're digesting their food.
Well, they just like take
usually,
a nap.
Yeah, they take a nap, and that's why you would see a lot of mammals out there. Or I'm not sure about all the other organisms, but mammals out there, they actually are predators. Would take at least 80% of the day, I would say,
laying down.
just sleeping.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's because they're digesting their food and they're trying to transfer that food into energy, and they're preserving their energy so that they can go to their next hunt.
Yeah.
So it's that energy surplus that can be used by the brain, and then over time it might have expanded that way?
No, I guess it's probably wasting time. You know, I guess
You're putting that surplus energy you're talking about, you're just putting it into your stomach.
Real quick input.
Yeah.
Real quick input.
Is it about the lions?
So talking about,
Yeah, I was gonna say look up. It's some crazy number.
I got it.
Yeah.
So, sorry. So a male lion sleeps an average of 20 hours per day.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh man, I was close to my percentage.
Oh my God.
It's like 80%.
What's funny, I was watching a documentary on lions yesterday, and I was about to say that it's about like 4 to 5 hours that they're up only. And,
nocturnal,
female lions are a little bit more active than male because they do the actual hunting.
Yeah.
So they gotta do the thing. But
lions are sexist.
Males don't do much.
Oh, come on.
But yeah, it's insane. But I think it also has some other benefits. I think there was a TED talk that shows like cooked meat also kind of help our brain expand as well, like in terms of like being more consciously aware. I forgot what the science behind of that is.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to understand.
Yeah, I
So
think about the energy.
That's what I was wondering. So if we're not using as much energy to, digest meat, are we possibly using that for brain computation over time? I mean,
I could see that. It just now allows you to do other things rather than just lay around for 20 hours and digest food. Now you can go and observe.
I still do that.
Yeah.
and then like 10,000 years later, your brain expands.
Yeah.
Or there's another theory too, that they start eating mushrooms.
Yeah.
It's called the stoned ape theory.
Yes.
And it makes a lot of sense to me.
It does.
A lot.
No, it does.
Please explain.
Basically, the stoned ape theory is that we just started taking drugs, and that expanded our consciousness. And one of the drugs that they talk about in specific is mushrooms.
Right. So these are when we were still kind of primates.
Yeah.
So they said the apes came down from the jungles, right? They came down and they were looking for insects to eat. And they would go towards cow dung for insects, and then mushrooms were growing there.
Yeah, they just flipped over the cow dung, and you found mushrooms. And they definitely expand your mind. They give you new ideas. So it doesn't have to be a fact, but it does make a lot of sense.
Especially if they're eating like hundreds of them.
Yeah, I mean, if you took enough,
I was say it probably doesn't make sense to people that don't understand how the mushroom works. So you know what I mean. But if someone wants to look into that, it's a cool theory by
stoned.
Go ahead.
Stoned ape theory.
No, what's that guy's name? He's big on
McKenna.
Terrence McKenna, yeah.
That's his hero.
Again, it's controversial, but it doesn't have to be factual. It can make sense. Something can just make sense without it being fact.
It's a logical theory.
Yeah, it's a logical theory. That's the word I was looking for.
All right, let's get back to.
So another thing I was thinking. So you're doing pretty much research in your field, right? So you are trying to find ways to improve things, and that is kind of research, right? Well,
you do research, confirmed.
Please confirm.
No, I don't do heads-on research.
Okay.
My job is to look at existing research, and see how I can apply it to my current knowledge and to my job. Yes.
So I mean. So, like, what I'm trying to say, like, within that field, like, so if you picture our planet, right? So there's these laws of nature that already exist in it. And then, throughout time, we human beings have been trying to figure out, I could do X, Y, and Z. Like with sitting in this room, we can just say there's so many discoveries that we could make right now. Like, Newton was sitting and an apple hit his head. And he figured out gravity, and then he came up with these laws of physics that, with his understanding, I'm sure has made your field possible in the future. It was just some guy just sitting, and he understood, this math right here, and then
some guy with a purpose, though.
Yeah, he understood.
It could be any other guy, and you're just like, apple.
Yeah, like me. Yeah. It's me. I'll just pick it up and eat it.
Yeah.
3-second rule.
Guy, it has to be some guy with a purpose.
Right. What I'm trying to say. So like within this space time that we have, there's already things that are decided by the universe, and it's just us over time figuring out how it works and using it to our advantage. And we got into the point where we are doing CRISPR or things like these to even change the future. And is this cool thing about these things already exist? We're just discovering them as we go along.
And creating technology from it.
Yeah, and we discover things and invent things from, it's an input versus output. But this thing would, imagine so many other planets where there are maybe living things that haven't discovered these things, but these rules are there. If they discover it, they can also get to this point. And then you can think about how many things that we haven't discovered that could take us God knows where, So it's just cool, just sitting in this room and looking at space-time. There could be something in here that no one hasn't discovered yet,
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, if you were sitting here in the 50s, you would not know. You would have an iPhone in your hand and you can connect to the world.
Yeah.
Someone would laugh at you and be like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
But the fact that we're here and I think you have an iPhone or a Samsung.
We're anti-Apple. I am, at least.
Sorry. And the fact that you can connect with the world at a touch of your button, I think that's amazing. We're always going to be going in that area where we're always progressing, and the progression will not be something that will be stopped. I think the point is, based on the YouTube video you sent me, the singularity aspect of it, I thought that was amazing.
Yeah. So I shared a video with Neil deGrasse Tyson and Ray Kurzweil. It's like a 20-minute interview. Yeah. I kind of wanted, like the question they had about the future, where we're heading. I guess we can start diving into that now. And it kind of gets into ethical questions too, which I think get kind of fun too.
That's the best part. Yeah. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to plug in this awesome video game. It's called BioShock, and it's very relevant to what we're talking about right now. So just to
which one to be?
The first one. The first one. So the narrative of that game was that this guy, like a billionaire guy, builds like an underwater utopia where gene editing is allowed. Like there's no limit. You can do whatever you want. You're essentially a god, even though you're human. You can make yourself into whatever you want. So, but it all ends up as a dystopian game. Everything goes bad because there were no limits.
Oh,
so
shit.
it kind of gets in, because it gets into the ethics. Where do you stop? Because we're all human, right?
Yeah.
Most of us always want more and more.
Right.
There's no limit to where we stop. So the ethics part, I think, is very interesting.
In that world, Kim Kardashian be walking around like a minotaur or something. No limit.
I mean that's the biggest question about CRISPR, is that the fact that you can genetically modify an embryo and make these genetic engineering babies where
you're playing God, 100%. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it seems that way if God existed. But the fact
we are the gods.
We are the gods. Yeah.
I'm a god.
That's a cool theory. We can talk about that too later. But
no, the fact is that you can just hey, you just woke up one day and you decided that you're gonna have a baby and that baby's gonna have blue eyes. And you can contact CRISPR and the agency and just say hey, I want these features, and you're making,
oh my god,
based on the preference that you like, as well as advancing the good qualities of being a genome structure where you have better bones, better height, better intelligence, better adaptability. All this stuff can be programmed into your body,
right? Which is insane.
Yeah.
So I think since the technology is in the beginning phases and we are kind of testing the waters of how far or deep we want to take this to your point, like that game did. So I think the starting will be, I want my kid to have blue eyes, or I want my kid to be blonde or red hair or whatever. These are going to be the starting phases, but slowly, eventually, then other companies or other industries will start tapping a little bit further. How tall do you want your kid? What skin tone do you want it? What bone structure? How do you want your kid to be an athlete? Do you want it to be the next LeBron James? Oh, or Michael Jordan? So and then
you always do this to me.
Sorry. And then also we can start editing the brain, how each kid that's born in the future is going to be the next Einstein brain, that we can program it to that level. Imagine how that would change the world.
The funny thing is that it may not be that may be in the future how we're engineering babies, but it's already happening with the food we're eating.
True.
It's already happening with the things that you're already interacting with right now. I mean, I believe in 1997, the first tomato came out, and they actually were able to make it last longer.
Yes.
Based on genetic mutation.
I had the sweetest orange today.
Those are called GMOs, right? Genetically modified.
Those are growth hormones.
Sorry, okay.
But
so GMOs, what does that stand for?
I think it's growth hormones. So it's growth hormones that just growth hormones.
Okay. So we're doing that, and it's a because that tomato thing that you explained is to help increase the shelf life, right? Because before, by the time it got here, it only you had to use it within a few days, I guess. But but with this, because they also have DNAs, right? Tomatoes, so you can change everything. So we can change their sequence to let them live longer, if you will. But it's cool to think like, these will be the first steps that we take. But to your point about that game, maybe from 100 years to 200 years from now, God knows what we're gonna look like. It could be half man, half.
I'm gonna be LeBron James.
Yeah, and how do you even regulate that? Like, say we have regulations, right?
Right.
But if people have access and it's easy enough, and they have the code on how to program all this, who's stopping it? How do you even stop something like that?
Google is gonna open source it. So everyone's gonna be modifying people.
I mean, just think of it in terms of like, super soldiers, right. Like people can create a whole army of these best of the best. Like, and it's just mind-boggling.
And you take their empathy slider and you slide it all the way down, so they have no empathy.
They're just going around shooting people,
killing machines.
So they can only
sociopaths.
So you can develop brains that only follow orders to the extreme. So you can just create these robot army that.
Imagine genetically modified and chipped in.
Yeah, and chipped in.
What if you as a human being, you're like. You have just like with your phone, you can connect it to the computer and you upload your movies, TV shows, music, or what if you can connect yourself to the computer and code in? All right, you know what? I have a basketball game coming up this week. I want to be a foot taller. I'm going to be playing power forward or whatever. And you just wake up the next day and you're huge.
Yeah.
Or, you're just. I mean, obviously that sounded really stupid. I know you're looking at me like what? But I'm it's way in the future.
Nothing is far fetched.
And that's the crazy part. Yeah. All the stuff we're talking about is an actual a reality. But the one thing that I was thinking is we talk a lot about artificial intelligence and it taking over. Mm-hmm. But one thing that we don't talk about is our improvement in relation to them getting smarter. So we're also going to get smarter by the time the singularity comes. Yeah. So who knows what level of smart we'll be at.
Right. So Ray Kurzweil says that artificial intelligence will merge with us rather than what the popular consensus with most of scientists are, that AI is just going to go off rogue by itself and it will be out of our control.
Right.
But maybe we will just kind of merge with it. Like androids.
Are we already kind of like cyborgs though? Isn't our phone an extension of us? I say this in every episode, I know, but it's an extension of us, and it's always relevant to what we talk about. But all of our knowledge, Google, I can just say, "Okay, Google," and it'll tell me anything I need to know.
And this is just the beginning phases of it too.
I'm super smart. Ask me anything. Give me a second though.
Right, okay, with your cell phone and Google, you've kind of expanded your RAM almost in a way, because you can't hold all that information in your brain. But now that you have internet, it's at the it's right in your fingertips.
That's why we have these two here, because we can recall everything. Exactly. So you guys pull up certain things that we can't.
So we're the smartest people.
Yeah. Pretty much. You have that extension at the moment.
And my computer is really fast too. So
and what's crazy is these, we were saying, these changes are already happening. With
featherless chickens.
And also, I was,
so
I'm serious. You can actually create it.
Yeah. That's because it's more work to pluck all the feathers out.
Increase productivity.
Just sell it right to KFC. They just dump it in a fryer and you're good to go. That sounded evil. But that's what happens.
So I just became a parent 2 years ago, and I remember in that process, my wife had to go in a few times, and they examined the baby, and there's a lot of studies that they're seeing how healthy that baby will be if it will have Down syndromes and stuff like that. So we already started this genetically modifying decision making, if you will.
So they look at your genetics to discover if it's going to have Down syndrome down the line, or
they search for that because I think I was reading 90% or 80% of the people, when they find out their kid is going to have Down syndrome, they abort the baby because there's no point of bringing life that's just going to suffer. So we already are making those tough decisions right now. Ethical decision. That we shouldn't bring a Down syndrome baby into the world. So going forward, if we will get even more advanced, family that already have cancers or something like that in their family, to take that out. In the baby, so when it comes, it wouldn't experience the same problems or issues. And then from this, we're going to go from what we talked about, changing eye colors, hair. And then I think the most important thing for me would be how we could probably genetically change the brain of our future generation. and how that would exponentially change the future if we can program a brain to be like Einstein.
Everything is money, right? I guarantee you there's going to be some features that are going to be like, all right, this is your base package. Yeah. You can have like
platinum, Einstein.
Curly hair, this, that. Yeah. If you want blue eyes, that's in the platinum package. You can be up to 5 feet tall. Anything more than that, it's going to be $99 more per month.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, so how do you guys feel? How do you guys feel about that ethically? I think it's fine. Like I'm up for it.
Well, the fact that you already mentioned, like, you know, we're already programming ourselves to ethically choose the best of the best, you know, and being able to identify certain things early on in an embryo or a developing baby and being able to have the decision to abort it or not.
Right.
And 90% of the time they do is showing you that we are going in that direction.
Right.
We're definitely thinking more advanced, and we're thinking about the future and our future of our population.
Right.
I personally believe that, you know, as we advance, we will be picking these features to, you know, work towards a population that's superior.
Does anyone here feel that's ethically wrong or has any problem with that? Or
yeah,
you do?
To a degree.
No, to a degree, depending on what situation you're in. I mean, because what's really going to happen, in my opinion, is that the rich are going to get way richer and the poor are going to basically get way poorer in relation to the rich people.
Have the base package. A bunch of 5 feet tall trolls running around.
Or you just have a natural baby. You don't need to go genetically modified.
But then there's also the fact of discrimination, right? I mean, we already have discrimination among races.
Yeah.
I mean, what makes you think that I was genetically modified, baby, you weren't, and I'd be like, you suck.
Yo,
I'm better than you.
So if we are going to change the brain, then the people that are going to have natural birth, like poor people, like, you know, as you're saying, so they will be less smarter. So then they'll be already a disadvantage with the smarter species.
Like Hunger Games, you know, like the rich have like this cool time. Go ahead.
So is like information and advancing on that information like a human right? Because people seem to think we have to do this. There's some kind of momentum that we just cannot stop. We just have to do it. We have to advance. So is information like a human right, I guess?
I feel like we always think about like we have a choice in that case, but I don't think we do. So imagine that all of us decide that, all right, you know, we've had enough progress in this field. Let's just stop it right here.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be somebody in some corner of the world that's going to keep going forward. And you can't stop that.
Supply and demand.
I think what we're talking about mostly right now, like, hair color and eye color. I mean, I think the thing that I'm really interested in is solving the problem that is cancer that's killing millions of people.
Right.
You know, and a byproduct of that, what also is in genetics is this stuff, you know.
So these things will... these will be the solutions, right? Solving cancer or how we can fix babies before they're born to avoid all, you know, any issues to happen.
Any hardships.
So these are, the first steps that we take, and then so it's gonna be like we'll get used to that, and that will normalize our feeling. And the next thing, you know, we're gonna keep pushing the envelope each time we get there, and then eventually we're gonna get to those very big ones where we can literally change the baby to have advantage over other people in the world. For me, like the points that you made are valid, but then I always think about if we can really create, you know, more smart babies that could be Einsteins in the future, how we could benefit from that. That also could be, amazing. I don't know, maybe worth it.
Like, I think we would be coming up with more and more solutions to all of our problems faster and faster and faster the more smart people are around, you know?
Yeah. There's no doubt about that, but it's almost like a risk analysis. We also have this feeling that our technology might kill us. And, you know, it's basically a risk assessment. So I always say anyone that wants to advance it is also taking a risk on. You know what I mean? They're okay with like a level of risk. So, you know.
Are you saying like the technology will consume us, basically?
Yeah, I mean, like even now, Ray Kurzweil is all for the singularity, but there's a lot of smart people out there. For example, like Sam Harris, who are like, hey, man, we got to chill out with this AI talk. I mean, he talked about going into a group of basically artificial intelligence programmers, I guess, and even they're scared. So It's not like people in this community are scared, and then there's some people who are like, we got to do this. So, you know, it's a risk assessment. Are you risk averse or you're not?
I think that you brought a really good point about money factor. The fact is that our economy is revolved around money. The better equipment you make, the better invention you have, the more money you will make, and eventually you will be, you know, able to become God, basically.
Yeah, become God.
Yeah.
This is great.
If there's money there, it's gonna come up no matter what.
Exactly, and this is where, and right now, currently, is what people are thinking as a money-making gig, where, you know, if you go into just type CRISPR, you will see so many institutions right now are just doing that at a very cheaper rate.
Right.
And like you said, like the package and all that comes in place when you start picking things up. Ethically, I think it makes sense that you would want to have a better version of you down the line. However, like you said, like dealing with the big issues right now are cancers and these genetically mutated diseases. But once you eradicate that, you are just ideal mind sitting there waiting for something big.
Yeah.
And
what's the next thing?
And that's what it's going to follow. It's going to follow up with genetically modified babies.
Right.
And I don't know if you can stop it.
One thing I do fear, and me and Z were talking about this earlier, is like, and of course, I don't know too much about this or anything really. So this is just an idea that I had. So, you know, when we were talking about earlier, penicillin and how our body adapted to that, you know, and could it possibly be that, you know, let's say
your body didn't adapt to it. The virus, the bacteria adapted. Yeah,
exactly. Sorry.
That's why she's here.
Thank you. You're the fact checker now. So basically, like, okay, so if we're trying to solve cancer using CRISPR, could it be that like we eradicate cancer, but something even scarier comes from it, like a super cancer that's even more powerful and something we don't have a solution to? Because right now, even our genome right now, we don't even know what all of it does.
Right.
That's also
now I might be wrong, so you can correct me, but like, for instance, the scenario that you put out, is it also possible that, okay, so you have this cancer, which is also mutating into something greater,
super
but
cancer.
it will still be in increments, right? It's not going to be like it's going to jump up 500% into something completely new. So our technology might also be kind of increasing in increments and staying up to date with that.
I would say that it's really just a matter of chance. It could do either way. That's another aspect of it about CRISPR is that, you know, you can genetically modify things, but the modifications can go wrong.
Yeah.
And that degree of modification that's going wrong can go from like, you know, 10% to 100%. I mean, you can really create a monster if you wanted to, based on things going wrong.
Yeah, plastic surgery today creates monsters.
That's why we do like tests on mice and stuff like that. Other animals, right?
Yeah, but see, then again, the variation. Everything is different.
Yeah.
Your genome is completely different than mine, even though I breathe the same, need the same oxygen, need probably the same food.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact is that
there's room for error.
Yeah, there's always room for error. There's always room for variation, and hence, it's an area that's not precisely even thinking about ethically wrong. It's just the fact that you can create something completely different that never even existed in this world.
Another thing that I was thinking about, and when we were talking about who would be opposed to this, guaranteed religious people that are truly like the leaders of religion.
Drop the religion bomb.
You have to, because we are essentially playing God, as we had discussed earlier,
right?
And that's going to be something you're going to be so against.
And then that's what I don't understand. If the God was there, and if He didn't want us to do this, why would He even provide this intelligence for us to go that far?
Snap.
I feel like
chill out, papes. We're cool.
Yeah, and religion seems to be against everything almost nowadays.
It wants to keep us in this, like,
I wouldn't say everything, but
99.9%.
Religion's cool.
JK, I love religion.
I honestly think, and this is solely my opinion, but I think religion is a form of like just people getting together and stopping you from things that are happening great in this world.
Yeah.
It's just anything that happens, like
advancements,
genetic
right?
advancements. Like, you know, you're just going against God just by building anything. Just anything, like, you know, but from like late Galileo's age, right? I mean, Earth was flat, and that's what people believed. And if you said round, you get killed. Heresy, you know? It's just that if they don't understand it, or if they are not willing to understand it or believe in it, it's just automatic reaction for them to say no.
Right.
Totally.
So this is where genetically modifying future babies comes into play. This is why it's important.
Them smarter.
I mean, if it was up to religion, they would love it if you can go backward and kind of turn into like single-celled organisms and just stay there forever.
Right.
The thing is that, I mean, like with
Don't hit me late.
It would have evolved backwards.
and it's a theory. But I really think, like, just thinking in general here, the fact is that we are always in this era where we're just focusing on these aspects that we want to grow, but then also hold values to what we believe in. And in my opinion, we believe in religion because we choose to believe in it on old times when we didn't have answers for certain things. Yes. And now we're going to the era where we do. And still going along with religion, I think it just became a habit. It just became thrown on into generation after generation, just like culture. It was the norm. Yeah.
As you're saying that,
pop culture.
As you're saying it, what I'm picturing is like, if how we were talking about earlier, like how DNA is information. So it's just a double helix, and it has this formation of code that provides information. Now, this is his job for it to do. So like people that are religious have this DNA sequence that are coded. So any other thing that comes into it, it won't connect. So it's like, you know what I mean? So like we have to find out how we can rip that DNA, like split it up and put the actual facts in place. And
the fact is that our brain... The fact is, our brain works so much more differently than an entire body.
Yeah.
It has segments to control. I like the analogy.
Yeah, but it's wrong.
Great.
It has some merits.
Yeah, if we could go in that level and genetically modify things where we'd seclude ourselves from having those kind of imaginations, we shouldn't in reality.
We definitely should not.
Yeah, we shouldn't from that reality, because the fact is that from imagination comes ideas, and ideas can be in a functional reality if it's the right idea, I guess.
Right.
And I think religion came in the same way.
Religion's an
they
anchor.
Coexist.
We're
I feel
on Titanic the way we're going.
I feel like for most people who will never understand science and who won't get into it, which is sad, or have any kind of ethics, religion is not just a place to find God. It's just a way to find an answer. It could be that you're getting divorced. It could be that you're going through something, and you look to the book to find the answer on what the norm is. Sometimes it's that simple, and I guess we always do. We always go straight to the God part.
But that's what it should be, right? But then people make policies.
Yes, that's the problem. So they don't. So does man though have a set of policies, have a set of rules that can go over that? So instead of going to religion, does man have like a set of rules or like morals and ethics?
I don't think we're programmed with rules. Rules program us. That's how I believe in it. We don't come in this world with the idea. Yeah, we don't come. That's what it's a very famous saying. Like, we don't come with the idea of being racist, but we are brought into this world as full of racism, and then we build into that mindset as we grow, and that is the same concept of rules. Like, we don't come in this world with a set of rules that we just consciously aware of. We just are getting exposed to it and putting it into our lives.
Yeah, because we're always talking to like Ali, and Ali's always talking about his daughter and like how he wants to surround her with these type of ideas and rules, essentially.
Programmer.
Genetically modified.
Well,
in real time.
You are.
You are programming.
Each parent does, right?
Right. So absolutely. You want her to be the human being that's perfect in your views, and that's what you want your child to be.
Yeah. That sounds like religion. Like you're made in God's image or whatever. It's like you're
made in your parents' image.
Yeah,
well, that's true.
But then that's where the fact, the empathy comes in. That we're the only human. We're self-aware, and we have that factor of empathy. And mammals. I wouldn't be certain that 100% all other creation is without that. There are certain levels of empathies between each other. Or
dolphins, I think.
Yeah, dolphins. Even
whales.
A dog.
Yeah, they mourn.
Have you noticed if you're like crying next to them or something? I don't know if you have a dog, but I did. And if I had a sad day, they would know. They would automatically understand that you have an extreme stress reaction going on right now. And that's like amazing. That is amazing that two completely different species can connect in that order. And that is biological. Yeah. That is something there are rules. There's something, a biological reaction that's common between two creations.
It's almost telepathic.
Yeah, I could say that. You are having this language, but you don't need to use words. You just use emotional reaction. Yeah.
Dogs are nice.
Yeah, I was not a big dog fan, but now I love dogs. Man.
Yeah.
I want a dog.
What about like nanotechnology? Like that would be some. Is that in your field as well? Like bio?
It is definitely in the field, but it's not in the field I work in.
Right.
I have certain knowledge about it. Not the expert, but
right. So I mean, as we're advancing as human civilization, our technology is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think it's getting to the point where they're getting it to a size of cells. I think.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just talking to my dad's friend recently, and it's funny that you say that because we were just talking about computers and how I used to work in some Al Habib bank or something in Pakistan, and they got their first computer,
right.
and he's like, yeah, it was the size of a room.
Yeah,
I'm like, what? Like I knew that, but
it was the size of Pakistan.
They have huge ports.
So I think
Inside joke.
So I think we're getting to a point where we're going to be able to connect chips in our brains, right? And that's called nanotechnology, I think. And then the thing is, this thing will plug into your brain and help accelerate your process of information, and it will be connected to the internet. So whatever book you want to read, you would just read it in a flash of a second. You can type whatever book you want to read, just type it, and within a second you read the whole book. And then imagine now you can do that. All the books in the world, you simultaneously just read them with 1 second.
PhD overnight.
And now you have this much information. And what would you do with that?
Man.
And how that would change.
that would change everything.
And so at that point, how it took us like tens and thousands of years to get to this point with all the information that we gained. Imagine how overnight we will start figuring out, like I was saying, there's so many discoveries possibly we can make in this room that we don't know of. But having all these information just allows
like how you say, like to even discover anything, you have to stand on the shoulders of the giant, you know? So we're going to be just leaping from shoulder to shoulder to shoulder. You know what I mean? It's going to be so much quicker. But even you just saying that nanotechnology scares me. Why? Having a chip in your brain that's connected to the internet, how much easier is that for the government to control you? Yeah. Like, hey, your eyes
control you with your phone.
Yeah, your eyes are your webcam. Like everything's gonna be out there, man. Everything's out there.
So when people talk about nanotechnology, for me, I always read about it, and I was just trying to understand the scale of it. It's 10 to the negative 9, which means it's a billionth of basically, I guess, centimeter, and it's so small.
It's insane.
It's 3 atoms long.
Holy
3 atoms
crap.
long is a nano. Is nano.
Holy
right, so
shit.
Whenever you hear the word nano, the first thing that springs to mind is
like
small.
Yeah, like 100, maybe 1,000, but a billionth.
Holy
it's
3 atoms long.
Super microscopic.
So a hair is 60 to 80,000. A piece of hair is 60 to 80,000 nano long, I guess.
So small you can't even imagine it, right? You can't internalize that.
Nanometers, by the way.
What I'm interested in is the fact that how it actually interacts with our neurons.
Right.
Just to be able to connect it in that aspect, and we have thousands and thousands of interactions that are happening in our brain right now.
Yeah.
And just having this conversation.
Bunch of neurons firing all over the place.
Yeah, and the fact that this is going to find at the right place at the right area and be able to download that information, connect it, and be able to process and show it, and it's just mind-boggling
that it can do that.
Do we know how much data a brain can hold? Because, like, let's say
it's just a lot. That's all I know.
Yeah.
And it can be expanded.
It's more than this is what I've heard. It's more than any RAM
computer that we've ever had. There are some statistics on it if you want to search it. I read it a long time ago.
Yeah, because
But I guess the computing power isn't quite there as like you would have in like a supercomputer. So nanotech could actually, advance your brain to a point where you almost have the power of a supercomputer inside your brain.
Can I read this
small
quick?
chip.
Yeah.
Sure.
So most computational neuroscientists tend to estimate human storage capacity somewhere between 10 terabytes, which is not that much over a lifetime. Like, I would fill that up so quick that when it happens, I die. Anyway, 10 terabytes and 100 terabytes through the full spectrum of gases ranges from 1 terabyte to 2.5 petabytes. I just worry. So if we're downloading all these books, boom, 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 it's taking up all these megabytes and your own memories and your own things that are going on in your life.
No,
can you reach an endpoint?
So wait, they have no idea.
Nope.
So because you went from 10 terabyte to like a million terabytes
to a lot more.
Well, your brain really knows how to compress the image, that's for sure.
But do you need to save it? You just need to access it and process it and be able to say it at the right time, and then just like our phone.
But
my brain just One too much. I think I reached my limit. That was too much information.
You're just 1 gigabyte.
Come on, man. We're live right now.
Fully maxed. I hate when my phone is always reaches like the
storage capacity.
Yeah, it's so annoying. Just that error keeps coming. You trying to figure out what should I delete and not delete.
Z left the WhatsApp group.
Oh yeah.
Just because of that.
A new phone. Yeah.
He got a 128 gig one this time.
I got too much.
And nothing.
From 16.
And nothing. And nothing works because like when you go to a website, all those images are temporarily downloaded and deleted once you leave the web page. Yeah. So nothing was working on my phone. Just so annoying.
So can you get to a point where you have your own brain and its own data, and then can you have like a server?
Yeah,
so I offload some of my knowledge, some of my stuff, and I
that's
just
the
boom,
iCloud.
Oh God!
No, but I want an external hard drive for my brain. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
But if you have nano, if you have nanotechnology, then they will be part of that space, right? Not only are they going to help you compute faster, but I'm sure the idea will be that they will also increase your storage, right? So,
wow.
So I'm just guessing will be the same.
Wow.
There has to be an external server. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Hey, and while we're on this topic, I just want to plug in my favorite person in the world, Richard Feynman.
Yeah.
Because he was the first person who talked about nanotechnology. At that time, it wasn't even called nanotech, but he talked about it in his book. There's a lot at the bottom or something.
A what?
Hold on, let me look up.
I thought you said Richard. I typed in F-I-N-E-M-A-N.
There's plenty of room at the bottom. That was his book, Richard Feynman's the physicist.
I thought I heard something.
So he thought of this idea way back when. Maybe you guys can look up.
70s, 80s, I would say.
Yeah, right? Brilliant guy.
What's happening? Sorry, I took my headphones off.
Sam Harris says he's the smartest guy ever.
I like him.
There's a lot of debate between him and Einstein.
Actually, it goes. It actually happened before Richard Feynman, or somebody came up with it before Feynman.
That doesn't
which
count.
was John von Neumann. He's a really famous mathematician.
What did he like?
So he actually talked about this concept before Feynman. So he talked about it in about 1903.
We're gonna have to edit this out.
I have a computer in front of me, so I don't know this on the top of my head either.
But it's just.
But I knew that part.
It's insane, so if everyone was able to expand this much information, then it will go to a point of singularity where we can no longer predict what we will do as a human civilization, because we were going to have so much information that we can no longer use our math to predict which side we're going to segue, and it could be either good or bad. But I would think once you have more information in any given field, that you always go more to the right direction. I think
Yeah, it's kind of like a
trial and error.
Yeah, it's kind of like 100 years back where you were talking about phones and how it's like magic, and nobody could have predicted this kind of technology. Take that 1,000-fold.
Right.
That's what singularity would be like.
It's insane.
Because it would be so out of our control. We have no idea where it's going to go.
And then
at that point.
2-3 days ago, I think if I shared that article that Stephen Hawking predicts the world's human civilization is going to be done within 1,000 years. That's his prediction, and a result.
He's still going to be alive though.
And it kind of has to do with technology, bacteria and viruses that we can't predict. That could cause us to wipe out in any given second. But that's scary. That number alone is 1,000 years old. And if you think about religion, Christianity is 2,000 years old. Islam is 1,500 years old. We're saying we have less time than that. So giving those things, I feel we are right now we're living in a golden age of human civilization. We have no idea what's going to come in the future. Obviously, climate change is escalating. The more people there
Trump
are,
doesn't even believe in climate change. That's Trump.
Yeah, I thought he was keeping NATO. No, that's what Obama said.
No idea.
Donald Trump is going to be the great filter.
Yeah.
you called it in the first podcast.
Yeah, it's scary. But
and it was a joke at that point. It's reality now, bro.
It's happening, man. And what's scary is that, they're saying around 2050 we'll have about 9 billion people. So as the population increases, there's going to be a lot more poor people that are going to live in slums, and and they're going to have less opportunities to go to hospitals and vaccines and stuff like that. They can't afford it. So a plague could start that way. So we are heading towards a dangerous.
We're just too populated.
Well, my theory is that you can outsmart your technology and just go beyond and above to save everyone you can, but you cannot outsmart your own ecosystem.
Right.
There's the natural way everything is working.
Right.
You disrupt that, you disrupt everything.
Right.
And
nature will. It's a balance, right? So once we tip to a point of no return, nature's gonna come and play, and is gonna. So like the analogies that Dave made, I think we might have talked about it before. Like Earth is also a living organism just like us, and how a virus comes inside us, and and then our white blood cells go fight it. We're getting to a point where we're pissing off Earth. It's gonna eventually. It's gonna find out that we are the cancer, and it's gonna turn its weather upside down and go to the extreme of surviving. Because everything is a eat or be eaten world. That's I think the number one rule of the nature is if whatever you look at any scenario in the universe down to an atom, everything looks like it's trying to survive. And that's its only goal. You come to exist and you gotta survive. So Earth also has its own ecosystem. It has its own core and lava and oceans that it control. Right. It's probably not consciously aware, but it is doing these things to stay in play. And I think you're the one who told me how Mars probably had a span of time where for 1 billion years it looked like Earth, right?
Possibly.
So imagine 1 billion years from now, Earth looks like Mars. It's this dried wasteland of nothing. And
right.
We came and we did this cool podcast. We're thinking
very cool.
Yeah, and we're alive, and who knows, 1 billion years from now, none of our species are going to be out there.
Absolutely, that's going to happen, right?
Or we'll be living on Mars.
and we haven't even touched on bioterror, right?
Right.
Like that documentary you shared.
This is scary.
They were talking about using CRISPR on mosquitoes and making them so that they don't find human blood tasty, so they don't spread malaria, for instance.
Right.
Yeah, genetically,
Right.
So you can modify those.
Yeah, you could modify that mosquito, or somebody who wants to do bioterror can modify that mosquito and spread a disease that way. So yeah, CRISPR is amazing, but then how do we also stop the negative aspects of technology?
The evil part.
Yeah, the evil part.
It goes in the wrong hands, and you got a byproduct of something really bad.
Right.
Just like nuclear warfare, we had nuclear bombs that we had created, and now we're so scared that others are going to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it's inevitable. We think it's going to get into the wrong hands. It's probably already in the wrong hands.
Oh my god.
You know what I mean? Like
That's
humans,
true, yeah.
humans are naturally good and bad. So that bad is still there
There's
too.
a balance.
What Ali, you were just saying that how Earth is going to flip upside down and the weather. Sorry, let me fix that. But okay, so I just went into just a basic research on number of earthquakes with the magnitude of 6.99 and higher. So from 1863 to 1900, it was 12. Then the next 38-year period is 53. Then the next 38-year period was 71. Now it's 164.
Damn.
So what is that a symptom of?
So like they say, like now that the ice is melting, the ocean water level is rising, and the heat staying, so the water is getting more hotter. So all these things play a factor of how like the continents also move and shift, and it just I'm not into it, but I've read things where it just has a domino effect. You start changing things.
So there are plates in the ocean.
Yeah.
And what happens is that over time, there's a lava eruption that happens, and it breaks down the actual solid. What is that thing called?
The tectonic?
The rocks, the tectonic plates, yeah. And then, it breaks. It actually breaks the entire the line associated with a certain mountain or a certain joined together island, for example. That's how islands are pretty much built. And then I don't know if you know this, but islands come and go. Right. They're existent, they're non-existent, and they're just like based
Atlantis.
Yeah, I guess.
The best island ever.
Yeah, and that's how it works. And I guess we are, like he said, we're increasing the level of water. We're increasing the level of water that actually covers the earth in terms of the land, but the actual warmth that's coming because of this whole global warming, we're creating more and more and more of these in titanic plates interactions, which in results creates these horrendous.
So climate change, I just don't know the link between that and earthquakes, but one of the things that they are pretty sure about is that so how we get oil. For example, we basically drill holes and then fracking. Yeah. So human-induced fracking and basically exporting of oil. That has a lot to do with it. And I started to read what you said, and it's like the number was like 500. Now it's like 2,800.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Have you guys seen the movie?
Go ahead.
Have you guys seen the movie Deepwater Horizon?
No.
That is exactly like the thing. They're drilling.
That's the new one that
it.
came out, right?
When you drill for oil, when you're fracking, I mean, stuff's going to happen. We're affecting.
This is all amazing, but, Donald Trump doesn't believe any of this. Our president doesn't believe in this scientific fact.
President-elect.
President-elect.
I don't know. I think he said a lot of things that he didn't believe in, and all of a sudden he's changing his seat. So I'm not sure.
I don't know what he believes.
What he really believes in. I mean, I don't know if he kept up the news, but he has changed a lot of his policies from global warming and to like Obamacare to, and I'm just confused what the guy really thinks.
Didn't he just hire like a climate spectator?
Steve Bannon?
Yeah.
Right?
So he's appointing all radicals in the position. So even though he might change his views, the people he's appointing are
that's
insane.
True. That's true too.
They're definitely not progressives, because no matter what you think, if you're okay with Trump, and I've actually defended Trump supporters, but they're not progressive. They're not trying to advance humanity, in my opinion.
Right.
Maybe what they are trying to do is improve their own situation. Maybe improve their own situation.
Right.
I'll give them that. But I don't hear much talking about improving, the world. Or
I don't think that's the main motto of his campaign was ever to improve outside of the United States.
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
Just
It's nationalist. It's
Make
nationalist.
America great again.
Yeah.
And that meant bring jobs in the country with no plan.
Bring the coal jobs back, specifically.
Yeah.
So
Bye nature.
then it gets really scary. If going back to Stephen Hawking's that 1,000 time frame, which is scary. So I mean, everyone has a clock, right? We all are gonna be dead one day. We all have a clock that's ticking, and what we do with our time is also valuable, right? So like it's as us in this group, I think we're trying to spread some of the information to maybe spark some of that curiosity in people, and move this progressive movement forward. And it's just scary that we'll be gone one day, and if we don't do these things or push our research and development forward, that could even end less earlier than that.
Hawking went from 1,000 years for human civilization to 4 years now.
Divided by
And in the last podcast, when we were talking about Donald Trump, and we realized how complex the whole topic is,
right?
And the whole what's good and what's evil, and we've talked about that a lot. I always like going back to that quote from the book that you recommended all that time ago, Shantaram.
Shantaram, yeah.
Right, where they talk about, they make good and evil so simple. They're like, evil is anything that goes against human progress or stops complexity. So you simply look at Donald Trump and you look at his policies. Are they going to move humanity forward? And if they don't, it's evil. So that way you can really simplify things and, kind of look at it from a cosmic perspective.
Yeah, plug that back.
Oh, here we go.
No, that's an awesome thing. Like if you're against, or if you don't agree with it, at least step aside and let other people do their things. But once you start putting policies in place
to stop them from doing it,
moving that progressive movement forward, advancing. The goal should be always going upwards, right? As soon as we become stagnant, we're gonna be gone, because we can see that with, I think, through civilizations. Well, I guess wars kind of played a role in it too, but that rule, it's a dog-eat-dog world, so the universe also behaves in that way too. So our planet is floating, and our sun is gonna die one day. It's just gonna wipe out everything. So it's our job that is a future problem of our generation, but we in this room and in this country / world also play a role of how we're going to change or impact our human species life forward. The decisions that we make now will either change for the better or not, because Donald Trump, his 4 years, how much delay is that going to put in from figuring out how we can leave our solar system, because this is going to come into an end. I mean, he could be the great filter. He was a significant impact that helped technology, or it was 4 years delay in global warming, and that escalated to a point of no return, where the balance shifted and we can no longer fix something that's broken. So
I mean, even look at Germany, and when Hitler came into power, he said Germany was at the top of their game. I mean, they were doing really well, and Hitler comes in and puts them in this huge war, and they just broke up, East and West Germany, and then all the problems that came from that, and it set them back,
Yeah, and earlier we were talking about what makes humans different. We were talking about self-awareness and everything. And I think another thing is also that we're capable of looking far into the future,
Right.
whereas animals can't.
That's true.
And
yeah.
I feel like the whole Donald Trump thing that you're talking about, his policies and even policies by most corporations, we kind of stay in this bubble and just kind of look at the now. We don't look into the future. But I mean, can you think of anything more noble than leaving the world a better place for the next generation than how we found it?
The reason I was laughing, sorry, I was just saying, are you trying to say that Donald Trump is he's an animal? Because like the fact that you can't see the future.
Yeah.
No, but I disagree with that when you mentioned that animals cannot sense. They actually have a better sense of this world than we ever will, because we're so complex into thinking of each other and what our environment is, or what are we being fed by. In my opinion, we have lost our good sense of ability and the sixth sense, because these animals can sense danger from far advance, and then just go ahead and be able to make a conscious decision, not unconscious like we do,
Instincts.
but a decision to evacuate that place or just do something about it.
Yeah,
they've lost that instinct because, like, animals rely still on their instincts. We might have like a home security system, so we're not like so worried about hearing the creak in your top floor. Someone's walking around that's not even supposed to be there.
And the fact that they're able to communicate with sound is the most amazing thing I've ever encountered. Like, there was an NPR show just on that this guy actually trained himself to just be able to understand depth based on sound.
Right.
So if someone's just like talking from like far distance without closing his eyes, he'd be able to tell how far that person is.
Wow.
Animals can do that.
Yeah.
We cannot. And a regular human being, we don't have any sense of depth without opening our eyes.
Yeah, so they
depth. You're talking about sound and depth, how far somebody is in relation to the sound
like
that's
be
coming
able
in.
to travel, and the sound be able to travel and goes onto your ear, and you'll be able to absorb and understand the depth of that sound. Yes.
Okay.
So they say that animals live in almost like a perpetual, eternal now, right? They're consistently in the now time. Are you saying that's more of a positive because they're not, because they can't really sense that much of the past and future?
Mm-hmm.
Their ideals aren't that muddled, or what they need to do on a day-to-day basis?
I mean, that's different. I mean, their jobs are more designed towards survival. Like, they just have every day they wake up, they have to find food and survive. For us, we don't have that. I mean,
we got past that point.
We have definitely passed that point.
So they say that model is kind of outdated because now that because we didn't have the tools to kind of learn what animals were saying and thinking. Now they think that actually animals have a past and future. So they are so the model is actually changing, and now we can understand that they have dialects, that they communicate thoughts in certain ways that we never thought possible.
Yeah,
and all this research is very new.
Whales, they're the best killing machine in the ocean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the way they're able to maneuver their killing aspects, like from just anything they want to kill.
And they're organized too.
They're very organized. Yeah.
Have you seen some of the hunting that they do?
They have families.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
It's
like
amazing.
a multiplayer game.
It's just amazing how they attack, and they bring into themselves new ideas on how to get the seal.
So
it's crazy.
I think it was Blue Planet, one of those documentaries. I'll find a clip and I'll share it with you guys, and maybe we can share on our Facebook page as well. But they show how there's a seal. Once they find it, it's sitting on a little, maybe a 10 feet long
snow.
Ice that has melted. And what they do is they organize. Once they find it, they figure out, okay, they do formations like an army, and they'll come and swim underneath it. As soon as they get close to the ice, they'll whip their tail real hard to create a wave, and the wave will start rocking the seal back and forth. And then so they'll do like an attack, and the second fleet will come, and they'll do their whip, and then they'll keep doing this attack until the thing flips over. Did you find it?
Is it this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes.
Yeah, let's share. Yeah, so once
they're creating waves.
So right now they found the seal laying there. So now they're gonna organize a plan how to get this thing down. So you see, they're gonna come and they're gonna just.
Oh my God!
They're gonna flip their tail and cause this thing to rock, but they're gonna do attacks that they show. So it'll be like a few of them are gonna come and they're gonna attack, and there'll be another one that they'll just keep doing, and they're while they're doing it, they're talking to one another. You can see there is communication taking place.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It's a badass video.
We are far advanced, but don't underestimate.
Don't underestimate the animals.
So how do you guys feel? We're talking about all these cool genetically engineering, and then humans. We can do it to animals. We can take a dog and put nanotechnology in his brain, make him talk like us. Yeah, like how crazy would that be?
Family
Think
Guy.
like us.
Yeah,
Think
or
like
think
us,
like
yeah.
us. But what if we can change how animals consciously get them to our level of thinking? How crazy would that be? So now you have different species.
Mass Effect.
Yeah, like Mass Effect, like or Star Trek, or
And that makes me also think about our lineage too, because isn't there like a missing link between the ape and human race, right?
Yeah.
Well, we are apes actually, but like the evolution, there's this one missing link. Was there some external force that came and genetically modified our sliders and
then
just and left? Yeah, like
Yeah.
20, 30,000 years ago.
Isn't the theory that there was an alien,
Ancient alien.
ancient alien species or whatever that came in, and what's the most rich material in our galaxy or whatever? Forgot what they exactly said, but it was gold.
I think that's been debunked, but I know what you're talking about.
Well,
You're
the
talking
theory
about
was,
the Anunnaki, that crazy ancient alien
how
stuff.
cool is that name, Anunnaki?
Yeah.
Anyway, that they came here and they wanted this resource, which is gold, and they had us. They were
sounds
like,
so
"Wow,
far-fetched.
these guys are so dumb." So it sounds so far fetched, but they genetically mutated us. Hence, there's the missing link because we just we jumped.
maybe
I don't know. I mean, have you looked into these things called gene bank? So there's this theory, and I'm not sure if it's a theory or just
Fact.
but there is also another theory that aliens might have showed up here and be able to genetically mutate us in that way by gene banks. So they would have the exact genome they're looking for to enhance into your body, and they were pretty much injected to you, and to be able to replicate that into your cell growth, and then you pretty much, like you said, as you renew and become a newer cellular life level, then it just incorporates into you, and you get that intelligence.
So resource is so limited. I mean, it's unlimited. It's everywhere in the universe. So
That's Scientology, I think.
so what?
Tom Cruise is my god.
So by saying that, like, what is the purpose of this species is flying around giving other living
Slaves.
things? Yeah, but
We
like,
were slaves.
yeah, but I mean,
Haven't you looked at the Machu Picchu thing? Like, come on, those rocks cannot go down and up and down.
what I'm saying is like they wasted so much resource coming here, and they didn't take any, or maybe they did. We don't know what was.
They took a lot of gold apparently. Very
and so when before they leave, and just made
Maybe it wasn't even purpose of getting anything. Maybe they were just experimenting
spreading seeds.
Yeah.
I
For
guess.
the
on
genome
us to
themselves.
see how we react. And the results were great. What do we do? Nothing. Let's go.
and what if the proof is actually in our genes? Because we have like 20,000 genes, I think, and like a majority of them we don't even know what they do. Right?
The genetic code comes up to be about the manipulation of that comes about to be more than 300,000.
Holy
Yeah,
crap.
and I mean they would have specific codes that we built on,
Right.
but the combinations are
Right.
huge.
And we don't know what every gene does, right? There's a lot of genes
almost
we have no idea.
90% that we have coded. Yes.
Oh damn! So only
Yeah.
10% left.
90% I would say has been identified, and the purpose, and I mean that's why we are so advanced in CRISPR, is because we're able to figure out exactly where your eye color comes from. We maybe not to the intellectual level. I can't guarantee on that, but just your basic physical aspects, as well your functional aspects of you being able to live. Besides that, from your conscience to how your brain functions, I'm sure there's probably more research in that, and they're probably genetically modifying that too. Yeah.
Do you know? Do you have any information of like how like the first cells started, or like?
It's man.
If not, that's fine. I was just wondering.
That's biology 101.
I can answer that in one word. God.
No,
I
because
mean, so the way I've seen it is that because the Earth went through this, the whole methane gas and CO2 being carbon dioxide being mixing together in that time and form.
Yeah.
Because we are based on carbon.
Right. We're carbon-based life.
Carbon-based life.
What is it? Something like 90? What's the percentage? It's pretty high, right?
It's pretty high. I think it's in 90s.
90,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
And the fact is, I mean, that's a theory that I'm not fully aware of, so I can give you the bits and pieces that I do remember, is that based in that environment, a very toxic environment, The first cell was created because of the correct atmosphere that the carbon was able to survive.
Okay.
How that came to a cell unity and being able to replicate itself, I'm not sure.
Okay. That's where I guess. I mean, so we find DNA in every living thing, right? So we don't find it in carbon itself, right? So it has to be.
No, carbon is an element.
Right.
It's
okay.
not,
So the DNA is a molecule.
So wait. DNA is a group of all the genes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, one analogy that I really like, and you can tell me if it's right or not, is that it's that DNA. It's like, imagine a library full of books,
right?
And the genes are the books in that library that tell the body how to grow and do its thing. So,
So the DNA is comprised with these nucleic acids. So what it does is that it actually makes sequences between each other based on these 4 pairs. And based on each 4 pair that you get a certain type of gene. So that's where the mutations can happen, because if you actually went from thymine to I can't, because it's a T and a U. Yeah. But if you actually, go with the T and an A and then something, that's not going together, that's a genetic mutation at a single point. Now that could also happen on multiple points. I mean, from 4 bases that go together, these 4 bases can create different types of connections that can totally go wrong. So you're not looking at from just one genetic mutation at a single point. You can look at multiple points. And that's how diseases are formed. And that's also how either enhancement of someone, coming off as someone that's being, I wouldn't know, naturally modified versus someone that is suffering through a disease because of that same, because of a different genetic effect.
Right.
So, I mean, even in our own natural form, we can have advanced genetic mutation if it went right in the right environment, but it could also go wrong. So, I mean, that's, again, CRISPR is doing that for you, but it can also happen naturally, too.
Interesting. Oh, but yeah, that's a good fact.
Yeah.
So if you just let nature take its course, the given odds that nature will do what CRISPR is trying to do.
God already knows how to do CRISPR.
Yeah, well,
no, I mean, just look at us, like when in the olden times we were more equipped to our weather because of being more hairy, right? We were more, and then we decided to start wearing
clothes.
Like not cows, but like the actual hunting that we did, we ended up wearing their skin,
hides and all that stuff.
And over the time, we lost all of that. We're not as hairy anymore, and that is because of a positive genetic mutation that might have happened that caused it. And we are constantly evolving, and it may not seem to you now, but if you look at it in a blink of thousands of years, we have changed over time.
If we gave like a bunch of monkeys North Faces, would they start losing their hair over time?
Right, that's the thing, but you won't be living here to find out.
It's going to be over like 1 billion years.
It takes,
I think it's worth it for their sake.
Unless, CRISPR can figure out how to way to do, like life sustainability to a course of thousands of years.
I don't want to live that long.
Which it can, actually.
I want to be a vampire.
Hey, what if, you guys were talking about nature's own CRISPR form, right?
Yeah.
Doing its own CRISPR. So when these mutations come in, you get all these diseases. What if that's nature's way of saying, like, man's time is up and it wants to move on to another species? But now we're self-aware and we're like, no, we want to stay here. So kind of like cancer.
So then you're saying nature is also self-aware by making that statement, right?
Yeah,
so
that's what gave birth to us, right?
Yeah. So I think we've talked about it before, but I don't think we talked about it in our podcast, where you argue that nature, it is conscious, and it is just not Earth, but you're looking also from the universal aspect as well, right?
Yeah.
So it is aware of what it's doing and why is it doing its things. So
I don't know. I kind of disagree with that, because the fact is that our body is made to genetically mutate in a coincidentally perfect environment, and that perfect environment is not, I wouldn't say is caused by nature specifically selecting it. It's happening internally in our body with the same amount of temperature you are breathing in than I am, and I could have a genetic mutation happening right now if like I think it's really internally how your body is functioning, and that the whole concept of genetic mutation, it's such a cellular level that I don't know. I think that it can happen in a positive and happen in a negative way, but it's not dependent on the nature itself. It's dependent on the nature of your body.
But it is still a part of nature, though, isn't it? So even that mutation, like, of course, it can be negative for us, or it could be, I mean, there's some mutations that have been good, right? Even eyesight was a mutation at one point, very early on.
See, I mean, we can say to the point that we got in here, there was mutation. We had to mutate to get. There's a lot of things that had to mutate, right? So,
but we had to change certain aspects of our way of living,
right?
Like what was provided to us and what we changed about it made us mutate. You cannot mutate in an ideal environment. Right. Everything will go great. Something has to change in your environment to mutate internally. Point. So we changed something that was given by the environment to us, and that's how we mutated.
That's a good point.
So it's almost like a cause and effect relationship between the two.
Yeah.
Sorry, you guys can continue, but you know how earlier we were talking about...
but first.
Thank you.
We were talking
about... How do we continue? I don't get it.
Talk over him. Speak louder.
So anyways.
you know how you were saying that we are sitting here, we're not in control of our body, and then you were giving certain examples. I think we forgot to mention how sometimes when we have to go to a restaurant, we don't control that, so I'll be right back.
Oh, that's funny.
Really?
Can we continue now? Like, what a weird transition.
He just had to make that joke. He had to get it in there.
It wasn't even that funny.
That was really strange. Now I've lost my train of thought, actually, to be honest.
You can't continue.
Can the podcast go on?
Without
well, it can. The universe has to keep going on, whether you're here or not.
That's true. Yeah.
So with a lot of this, we're going to be curing a lot of the diseases, not just cancer, but like sickle cell anemia and anemia. But so many other things. And, just how we were discussing before, like, and I kind of answered my own question when I thought about it a little bit more and did a little bit more research. But, the way we deal with cancer today, and we use like radiation therapy and things like that, like what does that basically do?
It kills everything.
It's a targeted cell therapy. So they actually look into figuring out the cancer cells' properties, and they go through these genetically modified cell-attacking tissues that are injected into you, and throw radiation on top of it to find those exact cells that they're actually cancerous to be able to kill them.
But isn't radiation therapy or chemotherapy, isn't that a scorched earth policy? Basically, we're
kills everything.
Yeah, because that's really what happens when you go through.
Well, yeah,
chemo,
I mean then that's where the whole side effects come in place. It doesn't necessarily kill everything, but there are side effects associated with it, as losing hair, being nauseated, or loss of appetite. I mean, it's kind of a give and take, right? I mean, you want this thing to go, but it's not going to just go by itself. There are other factors that are going to be on the line affected while you're trying to kill this, and that's why cancer is so hard to kill. But because you are trying to, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you out, but you're trying to protect, sorry, I'm going to cut you out, but you're trying to protect the good cells from the bad ones. If the bad ones don't even come in your existence, because that's how cancer grows, because your body is not allowed to determine the cancer is happening. The bad cells are happening, and that's how it keeps growing. And
your body doesn't know that if it's a good cell or a bad cell.
Exactly.
It's basically masked.
Exactly.
Basically, what I wanted to tie back in was that earlier I had said that it would turn into a super cancer, but radiation therapy, it actually does successfully kill off cancer in many cases. Shrinks it. Doesn't it absolutely take it off as well, or?
Over time, with the right amount of radiation and therapy, yes, it can. I mean, it can be reversed.
Yeah.
But it depends on the stage you're in.
But even, so with genetics and all that stuff, what I was thinking was like, okay, what if it figures out to be even a worse cancer, a super cancer, if you will?
It spreads.
Like radiation therapy and things like that doesn't create a super cancer or anything like that.
So here's my thing. Like, I need to understand, what do you mean by super cancer? Because what can be worse?
I don't even know, honestly.
What can be more worse than your cancer spreading? That is to me a super cancer right there.
If you like...
Cut my mic off.
You can let me know if I'm describing cancer right, but basically cancer is your body imploding.
Imploding?
Yeah, I mean your body's literally it's going through it's blowing up on the inside in its own way because
I thought it was just cells.
Yeah, but the cells keep dividing. Process. They keep dividing and they keep spreading. So you're basically just dying on the inside. It's just spreading, and basically analogy that I use. You're basically imploding.
In a way, I think that makes sense. I mean, you're just a ticking time bomb. Yes, you are.
So it's just because
that's sad.
Because our cells are always multiplying, right?
So it's getting to a point where we will have no more rooms in our bodies.
It's just going to take over. So cancer, I know you guys talked about this like earlier. I just thought I would let the conversation flow. But we talk about what is you.
Yeah.
And if you talk about cancer, like our cells are basically programmed, and they do what we would like them to do, but a cancer cell is like what we're designed to do. Cancer cells like fuck that, I'm gonna do my own thing.
I'm gonna
stay.
It's almost like it becomes like cancer cell, it just becomes self-aware.
It goes rogue.
It goes rogue.
Shit crazy.
And then if you think about it, that's just like in the Bible or basically all religious books, how the devil is like an angel and he goes rogue. That's what I think of, like cancer.
Yeah.
You can pretty much relate anything
to
the
religion
and the God. I mean, good is evil versus evil. I mean, that's what that's why I think religion is important in some aspects of it, because of that clear idea.
It's just like an analogy, I guess, just to
yeah.
Take it back.
Right,
you guys are sensitive as hell.
No, I think that's a great point. I mean, in your body, within yourself, you're fighting towards evil, I would say. You know,
what we does is evil. It just wants to be its own thing.
Anything that's killing us, anything that's not is manipulating us in a sense that we don't want to manipulate is evil.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
So I mean that's why a lot of people paraphrase cancer as like he has cancer in his mind or something, like, even though he doesn't
his
really
mind
have
is poisoned or
poisoned, and it just cancer is becoming the new term,
Right.
Yeah. God, you're being such a cancer.
We're not far away from that.
No, I swear, I hear it all the time. Like if you're playing games on the internet, you hear it all the time. Like, you're so cancerous. Like,
you said cancer to the what is the server?
To the server, yeah. Some guy running around trolling, of course.
And if you look at a picture of the Earth from like that cosmic perspective again, and you look at humanity spreading around the Earth, we kind of look like a cancer too. We're chopping down trees, causing global warming.
Anything for money. It's so crazy. And then money is made of trees as well.
And we made that, and we made the concept of money.
It's bizarre,
we control it, and then we're also consumed by it.
God, I love money.
Money's gonna drive our ultimate future. I mean, it's crazy. Like that's gonna be the factor, because we've got into a system where everyone needs in the society to do a job and so forth, and in this economy, we can't. I think it's too late to go back to a system where everyone just works to
never
work.
Happening, man.
And everyone gets equal share of everything of the world.
My biggest problem with the world right now is that they're not woke. That's a term we throw around a lot, but like to be aware of the happenings in the world, and people are so on that base level. When we were first in this world, it was just about being eating and staying alive. And then you go up another stage, and now it's like, okay, I have to have a future, get a nice job, and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And some people are just so consumed by materialism that they can't even think beyond.
Outside it, yeah.
I think that's just psychology, and place of it is boredom. The fact is that we have overcome all the hardships to come to a point that where we can just think outside the box, quote unquote, where we just don't know what to do next, so we have materialized our life with things that are meaningless. Yes.
See, the thing that I have a problem with when it comes to religions, also that it gives you rules. It takes out curiosity. That it tells you not to question God, to question the things that are in any of the holy books, and that is the final law. Like it can't be different from that. So you can't question it.
But I think my perspective on human population altogether, or coming down to a single person, is that everyone, I think we're the only species that are looking for a purpose. We're looking for something that's meaningful, and we're designed to think that we're important.
And we might just not have a purpose. As sad as that
exactly.
is.
Yeah. Maybe our purpose is to just wake up every morning and just find food and just go to sleep and just live and not really have to be bounded with love or attention But we do, and that's the fact, is that we do. We crave these other things that are associated with communication, associated with touch, associated with our eyes, being able to visibly and intensify our feelings. We're just very social creatures, and that just
too social.
And that really changes the ball game altogether, because now you're taking into consideration a creature that does not just need food, water, shelter, but it also needs a companion, intention. It needs a sense of purpose. It needs power. It needs to know its core wanted. Ideas. Like it needs all these levels of pyramid.
It itself is aware. Like I'm self-aware that I need someone else to be aware that I'm aware.
Yeah. And,
I know what's up.
and that's where the complexity is. Like that's why we're so abstract and we're not debugged by so many things, because we still have these interactions and like a way of being normal and being a sociopath. How do you make that distinction? We made that distinction.
Yeah.
Maybe a sociopath is like, fine, what he's doing is normal.
When you're calling someone weird, but they're just not the norm.
Yeah. We created this norm.
Yeah.
We weren't born
Pop
with it.
Culture creates this norm today.
I mean, how you were saying maybe there is no purpose. And, I think about that a lot. Yeah. So I'm saying I don't think maybe the universe is just so vast. Maybe there is no purpose of any of this, and we're just here by chance and so forth. But
that's depressing.
But given
see, that's the purpose talking to you.
I'm gonna start crying.
but given that scenario, I think our purpose is to find the truth. That's what I think, and we gotta head towards that direction. Maybe this purpose there is no purpose, but we gotta just go confirm that there is no purpose. If you will, we gotta go to that direction.
But that's what your self-being is telling you to believe in, and that's the huge factor of who you are as a person, is what you believe in.
Right.
If you and also it has to deal with ideal mind. Like just think of it, how do people come with hobbies?
Right.
People come with hobbies because they're bored.
Right.
Or they just have a self-interest and they just want to go away from what they're doing normally in life, and they catch up on this hobby and it turns into something amazing, or it just stays a hobby, but there's always a hobby.
Right.
And I think that's the same thing as for you. I think could be wrong, but this is your hobby.
Right.
This is something that connects you.
Yeah, fighting words.
That's a good point.
You're just bored. Go watch a TV show, you weirdo.
The TV is a whole another story too. Like, we're just sitting there in front of a screen and just waste ourselves and just to watch.
Waste. I take offense to that.
I gotta back my boy Ellie up. I think we do have a purpose going along with you.
Right.
Because okay, so cells have a purpose for us, right? They know what they're working towards. And even honeybees have a purpose in their ecosystem. I think we have a purpose. We just can't see it.
Right.
We don't know what it is. And a lot of people think that our purpose is to give birth to AI. That's a pretty popular topic, right, in futurist talks.
Well, I feel like it is. I mean, there's no stopping that. Technology owns us. We can dance around it, but we do what it wants. And if I was technology, I'd want to be more alive, more aware, have more power, and we just seem to be going towards that. There's no stopping it. Like what you said earlier, there's really no stopping that. What could we really do right now?
It's too late.
Hit the stop button.
You can make regulations, but that doesn't mean it's going to be controlled, right?
Yeah, you could have a Manhattan Project type thing, or some kind of big think tank where where we really try to stop this. I still don't think it's going to happen.
Well, we are in coexisting technology phase, and we're always, like I said, always looking for something better and better. And that drive is itself is a purpose. We want something better all the time.
Whether that also affects us.
Yeah, but whether it be the next iPhone coming up next year, what's better about it?
Nothing. Right. There's less.
But there's always a feature. You're like, oh yeah, I can connect from here to here. Oh, this was kind of easy. And this is kind of easy for me.
But then, when you go into philosophy, and my favorite philosophy, Stoicism, it's always about finding peace with what you have right now. And that seems to be what the higher level of thinking is, not trying to be maybe even more intelligent. It's maybe being at peace with what is now.
Yeah.
Or within yourself. Like, the fact is you filled up all your pyramids and now you're just at peace in what you do and content with your life. But the fact is, we don't control that because we live in an environment that always in a competitive, state.
Yeah, but I feel like that part could change. That part should change, I think.
But how do you think technology will rise if that changes? If everyone is content, how do you think there will be progression?
I think that there should be some kind of, or I think there probably is some kind of movement already. I mean, like I said, I was telling you a story about my phone, how I have 2 phones now, where I try to basically separate myself from technology at some point. And I feel like the world, like, I feel like, the last 8 years or maybe 10 years when the iPhone came out, from that point on, when, when the smartphone really
system.
Yeah, when all this stuff, it's so recent, it just got 2008 or something. So that's 8 years, less than 10, but I feel like it's been around forever. Yeah. It's such a big part of my life.
Yeah.
What I would say, now we're moving away from it, and we're resisting it a little bit because it's clouding us.
I feel like when my phone dies, I die.
Yeah, but
you do get a real feeling. There's some kind of stress.
Right,
I go into cardiac arrest.
See, that's the beauty of our multi-organism system, our adaptability test. We can adapt in so many different ways, and just be able to communicate in that new environment. I can throw you in like Japan right now. Somehow you'll survive, even though the culture, activities, language might be different.
Unless you find the Yakuza.
Yeah.
Surviving is different than struggle, right? You're surviving.
Yeah.
Hey, and that's what leads to mutations, right? Adaptations.
Yeah, I mean, I could throw you in Amazon and you somehow...
relax. Stop throwing me.
Let's just stick with Japan for now.
Amazon, I would be dead so quick.
But that's what I'm trying to tell you, that because...
Our structure can adapt.
Our structure can adapt, but that adaptation also comes with consequences. I mean, Japan versus Amazon, it's too extreme. I don't know if you'll be able to survive Amazon because of
maybe I will.
You lost the ability.
Challenge?
But maybe
I'll make
you
a badass treehouse.
Challenge accepted.
Throwing spears out of it.
But maybe you have you probably lost the ability of that tribal knowledge that we had back then.
A lot of us did. Put us in a forest and we don't know.
What if
we
they
can't
just
even
come
walk
back
without our shoes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just insane,
Yeah.
True. Yeah, I'm not going in there without my shoes.
I don't know who came up with the concept of shoes, by the way. Anyways, I mean, we were perfectly fine without it. And then the fact that we have it now, I don't know if even it has any enhanceability. And it's actually crazy how gym shoes came around. It was because everyone was into the idea of exercise and being able to run, and people did run indeed and on barefoot. But someone came up with the idea is that if I can brand something more comfortable or something more enhances their jogging experience, I can actually make a profit out of this.
Yeah.
Here we go. We got Nike.
I mean, I wouldn't want glass going into my foot.
No, but we've been walking like this forever. There's been rocks.
When glass didn't exist.
Yeah, but glass does exist now, so we didn't have shoes and so on.
I love my Nikes.
Yeah, we have to adapt
with our technology.
No,
I have CrossFit shoes, I have running shoes, I have hiking shoes.
I guess
the fact is, like you said, and I agree with it, is adaptability and also being able to adapt in a way that is beneficial to us. Yes, we created shoes so we protect our feet from the things we showed into our environment that wasn't there before, like glass and all that stuff. So, yeah, I agree in that.
Yeah, my whole point about the technology part was just that it's happened so fast that I don't think we've had time, mentally, to adjust or even adapt. You can only adapt to things at a certain rate. And this rate of basically, and it's getting faster. Yeah. So we have to expand at a faster pace, and it keeps getting faster.
But you may not be able to adapt, but the new population might. We are so much more adaptable than our parents.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So true.
You're saying that the kids might be able to adapt.
Yeah, I mean, look at my 5-year-old goes on my phone, calls people, sends text messages, and plays video games. 5-year-old.
Yeah, but
because they're exposed to it early on in their life, and they're actually creating those.
That's crazy.
See,
pathways.
I was seeing it as a population, so I think that even the benefits we understand, but maybe not the consequences of those benefits, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, we are at a fast pace where we don't understand the consequences, and I think that's where Jennifer, the lady who actually came up with CRISPR, I forgot her last name. That's where one of our tech talks, she told an audience that's why we need a pause on this. Because we know what amazing things that this can do, but we don't fully understand the consequences this can bring into
the momentum where it's going to take us.
Is it Jennifer Doudna?
Doudna, yeah.
So just to be conscious is to make sure that we don't go to a point of no return. Is that what?
I mean, honestly, in my opinion, everything can be reversible.
Until it can't be.
But that's one thing. Like, the world has reversed itself so many times.
The world has never gone through this before.
You don't know that.
Well, I mean, if there was another,
that.
if I can't say for a fact that there was never an advanced civilization.
An earlier civilization.
Yeah, but they're not here anymore.
You never heard of the Great Flood?
Yeah, I'm just saying they're not here anymore, so they're not a good example to
Noah
use.
was dope.
But I mean, I think it's probably safe to say there hasn't been 7 billion people in the past. So like,
I think it's more now. No, maybe 7. I don't
7.5.
No, but I think.
That's all right.
But I really.
Z didn't find that funny at all. He's just staring at us like idiots.
He's like, no.
No, but I really think that
too
if we don't have the ways of reversing ourselves, we will get killed and somehow the world will reverse itself.
Yeah, but
I don't know. On the process, something has to die, and it may be us.
yeah.
That was dark.
That's a whole,
Sorry,
that's a whole
listeners.
thing with global warming, right?
Please keep listening.
Like, global warming is not bad for the Earth, really. The Earth will be okay, but
It's us that will
Yeah,
suffer.
exactly.
We will
The
go to the
consequences.
point where we would have to create those boats,
Yeah.
Noah's
and
Ark.
John Cusack.
And people talk about that all the time. Oh man, we gotta protect the Earth. It's really not the Earth we're trying to protect. It's
Ourselves.
us.
Yeah.
It's always
right.
us. We're
Yeah.
selfish people.
Yeah, where the amount of
self
waste we're
species.
creating, the amount of pollution and global warming and just ozone layer being destructive. I mean, there's just so many variables.
And another benefit of like doing this crisping, we can change maybe our
Just gave up on it.
This CRISPR. Just gave up on the last syllable. Crisp. It's already an acronym.
Yeah, it's already an acronym, dude.
Let's shorten it up a bit more.
So if another advantages of that is how we can take away our fat cells and also our starvations, if you will, like, so we can probably eat less and do less damage in terms of like agriculture and all that stuff too. So there are a lot of beneficial things that we're probably going to get from this in the future, and maybe
From CRISPR.
yeah, and hopefully it'll be positive changes that we go towards this direction. But yeah, I don't know how cool would it be. You can eat all you want, also, but because our system has changed, right? We don't need to store fat anymore. That's our prehistoric, I guess. When we were primates and stuff, we will only eat once a week or one every so often
We had to
days.
store it.
Yeah.
So anything that you ate, your cells will store everything as fat, so you can use the calories later. Whatever you're not using now just gets stored as fat.
Especially sugar, right?
Yeah. So in the future, they're saying like with this technology that we can get rid of those fat cells, so you can eat as much as you want and stay at the same mass.
But then that's
I'm
where
already doing that.
That's where it concerns me from an ethical standpoint, is because we're not going towards sustainability of life anymore. We're choosing to just enhance parts of ourselves to just
Be lazy. Yeah, not to go work out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I think that's not what we're designed to do.
But
We're not designed to sit on our desk every day and work from 9 to 5 jobs. I
Right.
mean, the primates were just always active on the road.
We're already resisting against that. I mean, there's a whole movement now. I mean, we are resisting against that so hard.
That's millennials thing. That's not really like
What are you talking about?
No, I mean,
the
like,
active standing
What am I
desk.
resisting?
yeah, standing desk. Yeah, it's true. I have a standing desk now just for that reason.
Yeah, I do
It-
too, and I hardly use it. So.
Oh, I'm only on standing desk now. I
you-
can't sit down anymore.
But then there will be researchers to show you how standing too much can affect you.
No.
Then there will be research to show you how sitting too much can affect you.
No,
It's
but there is a scientific process because you know how you talked about sneakers. Basically, you're like, well, this design came out, someone to sell it. Chairs are kind of the same way. Chairs are not supposed to be, or we're not supposed to sit like this. This is not a natural position for us. And if you're in that for 8 hours a day out of your
No bueno.
But won't we evolve to make that a natural position over
do
time anyway?
do you want to wait like a million years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sit down for a
good
million
point.
years.
Good point.
Another thing would be like how we can also, because when we're dying is because our dying is kind of a disease, I think, right? Or you can probably explain it better. Like we're dying because our body can no longer.
We're always dying.
Yeah,
You're-
but I think at like age 24, 25, we're constantly growing. But there's a
Okay.
point where you reach in your age where you no longer grow. You're surviving. It's not developing.
you're pretty much stopping the growth of your reproducing cells over time in a very delayed time.
Right. So is death like a disease then that we can possibly cure in the future?
Oh yeah,
where
with
cells,
CRISPR, you can definitely increase the sustainability of, increase the life expectancy of your life.
right? So your cells no longer can break down. When we get 50 or 60 years old, your skin starts getting wrinkled because it can no longer keep replenishing. Because there's numbers on this too. Our skin changes every so few weeks or few months. You have a brand
few months, I think.
Few months you have a brand new skin. It's just in the dust in your house.
They're like snakes, we just shed that.
Yeah, the majority of the dust in your house is all your skin. The dead skin cells that fall off your body. So when you start getting older, your body can no longer keep up with the reproduction. So that's why your skin starts wrinkling. I think, right?
It loses the elasticity of your skin. Yes, but bear in mind, CRISPR is not there to give you immortal.
What?
CRISPR is not there to give you that.
I don't care about CRISPR.
But it can't lead to that, no?
Can it?
Maybe in the future.
It's
I'm
be
not
a
sure.
stepping stone.
It could be, yeah. I mean, it's not something that you can create. You can increase the life expectancy, maybe,
but it can't keep you alive forever. Ever, yeah.
No.
But nanotechnology can.
If you turn into an AI, right?
Okay, what is dying? Is it like our cells are not being repaired, right, at that same rate that they used to be? So can we, like you said, nanotechnology? So
yeah, they can repair them, just like Wolverine.
Or isn't so cells being repaired? That's not controlled by DNA at all.
Cells, it's being controlled by DNA.
So if it's being controlled by DNA, could CRISPR probably do that, right? Then
just tell it.
I mean, that's where the point is that what DNA does is it's able to locate a damaged cell, be able to replicate, kind of like go in and replicate. That cell knows, the DNA knows that this cell is damaged. I'm damaged.
Right.
So it goes out and tries to create those properties to be able to heal the cell. But over time, we're programmed in a way that it loses those properties over time. Right now, CRISPR can increase the life expectancy by creating that interaction process to sustain longer, but it's not going to
be immortal.
It's not going to keep doing it for the rest of its life of that cell.
So we can't reprogram it to do that, at least not yet.
Yeah.
I mean,
we can program it to be able to enhance it better, but not reprogram it to a point that it just keeps going like a cancer cycle or detects damage, healed, detects damage, healed. I mean, that would be great. Probably be in that era in the next few decades. I don't know.
How ironic would it be that studying cancer cells leads to immortality? And we just replicate that, but in a positive way.
Yeah.
Just that you were talking about the cells, it's the telomeres in the cells that get, so by the process of dividing, they get smaller and smaller, and eventually.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's the word. I think that's what you were talking about.
Yeah. So we got to stop them from getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah, well, if you could somehow... Well, right now, this is also, by the way, speculation, but this is what most people think it is. That's why we die. So our cells keep dividing and dividing and dividing and dividing, and there's a certain limit to that. And as they divide, the telomeres get smaller and smaller and smaller.
It's like female eggs, man. There's so many you have. After that, you're done. And then that's the same concept for your cells.
Yeah. Have you guys heard of immortal jellyfish?
Yeah. And so are...
they never die?
What are those things called? They're in fish tanks.
Fish?
Beta fish?
No, they're in a tank.
Goldfish?
Sorry.
Algae?
Lobsters.
Yeah.
They have a tendency to outgrow and they don't die.
Yeah, there's
something kills them. Yeah.
Yeah, there's certain lobsters that they can live for a long time, right?
Yeah, I mean they're like turtles. I mean they can live for hundreds of years, and their cell time is delayed.
Yeah.
Ours is not.
Right.
We can manipulate that, but I don't think we can reach to, at least for now, I don't think we reach to a point where we can actually make it go again and again and again.
But if we were to increase life by another 100 or 200 years, then that means I was saying earlier, in 2050 will be 9 billion people, but people are not dying. Because I think there's a rate, right? For every 2 people are dead, 4 are born. So I think that's the ratio. So if people just stop dying and more people keep being born, then that's also going to get really extreme, where we're going to have to put a limit to maybe banning from having future kids or
China everywhere.
Or one kid per household, or no kids at all, because how are you going to sustain that as well?
Well,
It's
that's
2 to 1.
where
2 to 1, right?
that's where your ecosystem comes in place. There's not going to be if there's going to be that many people, there's something that's going to be scarce. So it's going to be food, water, shelter.
Right.
Well, we could have like a VAT system and just creating chicken nuggets or whatever you want, and you're just creating it.
You can't control like tornadoes and tsunamis and
We can't control them yet.
Yeah.
Or viruses.
Okay, if a tornado goes this way, why don't we just go the other way and just create an anti-tornado and they fight and just
Yeah, because theoretically,
Some kid's gonna listen to this and invent that.
I patented it.
I mean, you can create a tornado in like a lab.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I
yes.
can do it with hookah.
theoretically, I mean, we know how it's nature and it has its laws, and the only way to do those things is to understand what's doing and how do I reverse it. So we can create tools to manipulate nature, and that also is nature, I think, right? Because some people would say, no, that's not natural, and I think you and I think Z say that is also natural because that's within the laws of nature.
Anything within
I think
the
there's
laws
a
of
new.
nature.
I think they need like a new term because everything could be natural, and obviously you're right, but that's not really their point.
The selective nature. I don't know.
I mean,
I guess so. I think what we always say is that anything that we as humans do, we came from nature, so anything that we make is still using nature to do it. It's not
Nature's
like we're
laws.
Yeah.
The only thing is we know the laws.
or we think we do. What if they
We're
can be
manipulating
modified
nature? I
and
guess
changed?
that's
Well,
probably.
we know it. That's why we're manipulating, and that's why we're coming up with these mutations.
Are we really
Yeah.
manipulating it, or those are the laws of nature itself that are happening? It has so many scenarios that can happen, and these are all, you can't do anything that nature doesn't allow. So anything that happens has to be in the laws of nature.
Well, I mean, just going back to just growing our food, that was not part of any other mammal out there living to be able to do that, and we did that. So we did go against the law.
But if it was a law, it would not have happened.
It's within the rules. We just discover the rules.
We make our own laws.
Well,
now.
I guess, I mean, if you think about it from a rule perspective, that was there, and we figured it out.
Yeah, the knowledge is always there.
Yeah, the nature is always there. It's just us discovering it.
We are CRISPRing nature.
Maybe we're only seeing one layer of the laws of nature, but then when you dig deep, you find out that it can be modified into infinite different layers, and like we're using it. For instance, bacteria is always there, right? Mm-hmm. And now we're using it to.
So there's so many things that cannot kill it for some reason.
But I guess you have to go back to like the.
That thing will always be living, even like the world ended.
Hey, but bacteria has a right to live too, man.
It does. So then you have to do your moral ethics, like who suffers more, a bacteria dying or actual human dying.
Yeah, of course.
So then you tie in emotion and all that stuff, and then you move
From
forward.
whose perspective, yours or the bacteria's?
From mine.
I don't think if the bacteria injected you and somehow started using your resources, I don't think it had an empathy to go like, oh. I'm killing you. Sorry.
It just turned to survive. It's that's another brutal law of nature. Like I think the most fundamental that it goes at is dog eat. What is the dog eat dog world?
Yeah.
So that's like the rule of nature. Like it's just a war of surviving. Everyone's trying to consume one another.
I'm sorry, Kaya. What I really find it interesting what you're talking about is down to organisms that don't kill the host.
What do you mean?
There are organisms out there that actually infect you and feed off of you, but they don't kill you because they know if they killed you, they die with you.
Yeah.
And I think the same concept kind of applies to us, right? Just like where we live, and we live in this world, we're a part of the organism, and we're trying to save it. So we are trying not to kill this big organism that we are in, but we are in a way. But we are self-aware that if this doesn't exist, we don't exist.
Right?
Yeah, like our own relationship with our gut bacteria. We need them and they need us. So it's like a symbiotic relationship.
Right. That's the word for it. Yeah.
But I'm just picturing how we eat cows. Like we have no value of their life. Like should we just start eating one leg at a time? Let them live, but just take one leg.
I mean, I think that's the survival, right? I mean, people who are vegetarian get with the concept of like, oh, how can you eat cows and you're bringing all this pain and misery. I mean, what are you to say that? Do you know if plants have any feelings? Do plants have any pain associated with it? You are not sure. I mean, you are here for purpose of, well, at least from a primate standpoint, you had a purpose, and that was to survive, and you had to survive by the food you ate.
Right.
Now things are different, but just packaged in a meal, a 5 minute in a microwave, you eat it.
Right, because there are certain plants that also eat other living things like the fly traps.
Venus flytrap.
Yeah. So if
carnivore plants, they exist.
So if I was
not a myth.
yeah. So I mean, even plants, when we eat them, that's also killing them and eating. Where do you draw the line of life? Yeah.
I mean, from a pure primate standpoint, if just from a pure survival standpoint, ethics go out the door.
When it comes to eating,
you gotta eat. I mean, people turn cannibal here when it comes to survival. I mean, what is there to talk about a cow or a plant, right?
But
all I say is, go ahead.
But what's crazy? There's humans out there who can actually resist that urge, and they might kill themselves before they kill anything else.
I don't think so, man. I don't think that if you're so
Eating
hungry
yourself?
to the point where you're almost about to die.
Well, I mean, for example,
there are so many people in the world that would do that.
For example, they wouldn't hurt anybody else to feed themselves. They would just go hungry and starve.
So you're saying that there will be people that are going to be so hungry. If you lock them in a cage and they're so hungry that they're about to die, and you were to put food, nourishment in front of them, they won't have it.
Okay. What I was talking about, the example is the fact that, let's say, we're all in this room and somebody is dominant, over somebody else, and they could eat them. They wouldn't eat them, because I'm just saying that humans can go against their own nature. That's crazier to me.
That's classic mutation.
Yeah, that's
when you're not going with the natural course of your role. That is mutation.
So someone might turn in here.
No, and
he's licking his lips.
And then we talk about nature, and we basically talk about Darwinism a lot. But maybe we've evolved to a point where we have to get past that system that gave us this and move on to a new system.
That's a great point. So like the Nebi, genetically modified food, right? Or what we talked about before, vats, growing meat. Like you can genetically grow a meat that tastes.
I mean, you can genetically grow organisms in other, like pigs, and inject it into your like pancreas and stuff. Like they're already doing that. I mean, you need a lung. Hey, a pig can develop it in their tummy and give it to you.
Yeah.
But where do we stop? So if we modify, if we start creating meat in the vat system, right?
Lung is a bit too much.
We're not hurting any animal or plant. Then do we also do that in nature? Do we go to like lions and modify them and serve them vat meat too? Like, where do we stop?
Let them do that thing, bro. I'm worried about me and my burgers.
Do we stop? Well, do we stop nature from being nature?
But they won't care.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was.
I'm saying to sustain this big population that we're gonna have, and it's gonna keep increasing with CRISPR. More people are alive. There's more people to feed. Land is actually not the issue. We could actually all fit in the size of like.
And we got Mars now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elon Musk.
We can bring those super soldiers there. Just genetically modify those.
Mars is just gonna be a stepping stone.
Mars could just be like our factory of vat systems, and we just ship a bunch of chicken nuggets, McDonald's corporations over there, just chilling, and all this food is just coming, and we're all just living, and there's like a
you can just create a time space where it just overlaps each other, and you create a portal and just go back and forth.
So if you
if
you take this
podcast,
if you take this ethics experiment to the extreme, we're actually talking about not killing anything or ever, meaning not just here, not just the damage we do. Kind of piggybacking off what you were saying, but damage at all, meaning even in the wild, a lion, or in the jungle, a lion killing a deer, we have to stop that lion from killing the deer.
Exactly.
So that's where ethics.
See, that's the natural That's the natural course of an ecosystem. You have to have a balance of predators and prey.
Right.
You cannot have prey.
So death is part of the equation. That's what I come to.
Yeah,
that's nature's law.
That's the nature's law. Someone has to die. At the end of the day, I'm the predator, I die, you're the prey, you die. Somehow it has to equalize.
You can take that further and look at how galaxies are. So when there's two galaxies that are passing by, then it becomes a war of gravity. Who has more gravity? And it will be always a bigger universe, and then it will suck it in and absorb the other galaxy.
They'll merge.
Yeah, they'll merge and they'll become one super galaxy. Then you can go into, I think you can either go to a very cosmic level or to a subatomic level. You just see the same law happening where it's just fundamental forces are fighting for dominant to be dominant in this nature.
So if we're the predator, we are the ultimate predator, or we are the apex predator, I guess, of this world.
What's going on?
I think that's his phone.
The hell? That's scary.
So it's on mute.
Yeah, but if you play a video, it'll still play it.
I didn't play a video.
All right.
What were you saying?
So I was just saying we are the apex predator. So we've always been part of the ecosystem. So that's why I took that example to the extreme. So we are actually always in control of the environment. That's actually our natural role, to control it all the time. You know what I mean? So sometimes people are like, well, I don't, I want the wild to be the wild and I want us to be us. Actually, we are always the wild, if you get what I'm saying. We are always the apex predator. We are always controlling it. So then the conversation goes, how should we control it? And then when it comes to that, it's like you're actually preferring certain animals to like other animals. And I don't know.
No,
Yeah, like why don't we eat horses? Like people go crazy.
Well, she talked about
People do
donkey.
eat
Yeah,
horses.
you talked about donkey earlier, and I was like, what's wrong with donkey?
No, people. Yeah, I think it becomes a moral thing, right? What's more available to you and what you've been eating all this time, and so you're invited to a new dish all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And people eat dogs.
I ate a guinea pig recently. That was disgusting.
You're weird.
You just have a sense of like. See, anything that you develop has a sense of feeling to it, right?
Yeah.
There's just a sense of feeling. Like if you give me cow, I'll eat it right away because that's what I've been eating. But you give me a dog and I have a dog at home.
Yeah. How
I'm
bizarre
like,
is
screw
that?
you, man. I'm not eating this shit. And why are you eating this shit?
Yeah,
Like,
then you start judging people, right?
yeah, I mean, that's the whole game of this whole thing. Like, you just have this constant judgment battles between yourself and other human being. And
But I think all that judgment is wrong. We should never judge anybody on what animal
But
they
we're not-
pick to eat.
But we're not control. We're not. You think you control
But
that,
to
but
a
we don't,
point.
because once again, I just want to make this point. We come into this world with no rules, but they're implied with rules.
You're implanted over time.
So you're saying that, well, again, that rule is only in this country, right? So
No, I mean, I come from Pakistan. I've been there, brought up. I come here, and I have a totally different experience. The way I think now, if I had stayed back home, it would have been complete. I mean, I wouldn't even be this advanced into
That's
what
true.
I have been thinking.
the best decision my family ever made was to come here.
Time out. Can we rewind back real quick? Because he said he ate a guinea pig. What, like a guinea pig burger? What format?
So
You went
what they
to-
do is they roast it. So a guinea pig, by the way, is not a pig, so it's not pork.
I'm saying this is
Actually,
on your trip when you went to South America, right?
See,
When I
why
went
does it
to-
matter if it was pork?
when I went to Ecuador, I just don't
Yeah.
eat pork. I just don't have a taste for it.
See, you have a
Have you
taste.
tried it?
There's a certain
Yeah,
aspect to
but
it.
I don't make a judgment based on that. Do you get what I'm saying? So that's
Okay.
what I was just trying to separate. So I went to Ecuador, and one of the
biggest
delicacies is
roasted
roasted guinea pig,
So
and you get.
these are baby pigs that they grill.
Yeah.
No, these are okay. So if you look up guinea pigs, they're actually not pigs.
Sorry.
They're more like hamsters.
Yeah.
But they're really
okay.
large,
I
and
thought
they're
it
so
was a-
cute, and they're like, because we saw them after we ate
They're
them.
like this.
Yeah,
like
yeah, they're-
about what? Not
Yeah.
even
Adorable.
feet.
Yeah, like
feet
exactly,
and a
just
half.
Very
so-
salty. How did you even eat it?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had
it was
and I
alright.
like, this is.
It's like a
It
foot
had
long.
like
at least.
claws, and the face had like this mini hat on it, and it was just roasted.
Yeah,
and it was just
They were just so
disgusting.
cute, and I was like, holy
Yeah.
crap.
They roasted the way it is, right?
Yeah, they roasted like a pig though.
Cutely
the way they
delicious.
roast a pig.
It's not. It's
So
disgusting.
I remember seeing some
Deliciously
images.
cute.
They had just a fire going. They had just like 10 of the guinea pigs just roasting. It was
Yeah.
like, man, that's bizarre, dude. like,
See, because that's not the norm.
You
Yeah.
find it bizarre,
Yeah, I
but
do.
there it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, so it's a
It's like in the lips.
delicacy.
Yeah.
when you eat meat, to me is food, but I never picture it being a limb, But now lately, like every time I'm eating, I guess I'm gonna ingrain this in people's head. But when I'm eating like chicken or something, I'm just seeing dead limbs. It's just so.
Oh my.
Yeah,
that's what it is at the end of the day. It's
I've
just
seen
dead
so
limbs.
many
Ketchup and
people.
call it a
I've
day.
met so many people turn vegetarian because of that interaction where they did indeed see a dramatic situation when the chicken was getting cut off, the head, and they're just like, oh my god, I can't.
I
do
feel
this.
like being a vegetarian is also like a reaction to it. Like, I feel like some people become vegetarian only for a period of time because
It's
they have
hard.
to accept what they just have been doing for so long.
Yeah.
And that is like you know what I mean? It's like a mourning phase of what the hell have I been doing? And you kind of resist it completely. And then
Right.
people come back to it slowly after they accept it, after they learn more about exactly, what they've been doing.
But come to just accepting it. I mean, I've lived in Pakistan and I've been on streets where my mom would be like, "Go get us chicken." I'd go up to the store and they would cut it. I'll see that happening.
Yeah,
They
it's
throw in
pretty-
that dumpster thing, and that would just
Dumpster.
it is literally
Yeah.
a huge dumpster, pretty much. And
Oh,
then you
no.
pluck it out, fresh chicken
Yeah.
right there. I mean, that's what you get. Like, if you don't want to miss on fresh food, I mean, that's what you get.
I had the
right?
craziest
and fresh food
experience.
is like amazing too, by the way.
Yeah. No GMO.
No GMO,
I
and
had
it
the
tastes really good.
I had the craziest experience because it was Eid and we were in Pakistan, and like I thought I was getting a pet goat, And like I came and I pet the goat. I'm like, dope, I'm gonna take a goat back to America. That's gonna be quite a story for my friends.
Explain the
Next thing you're eating it.
for those people that don't celebrate that.
You get a I didn't even know
it's a holiday, right? But
it's a part of the holiday. You sacrifice the goat and you give it out to the poor. But when I saw the goat and I didn't know much about this, I was obviously a kid, and I pet this goat. I'm like, cool. I have like the coolest looking goat. Like it had like a cool pattern to it. And I was like, dope. I'm gonna take this home. And the next thing I know, my mom's like, all right, everyone upstairs. Obviously, I was like, oh, no, I'm, like, attached to my goat now. Like, this is dope. I'm, like, sitting by the stairs. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go and see it again. And next thing I see is this dude just pick it up and pop.
Yeah.
Killed it.
I remember I went through the same thing.
Yeah.
I saw a picture of those goats. I think I was, like, 4 or 5.
See, yeah, like,
They were your pets, and now, like, the next day, I think we woke up, and then the guy comes and slaughters them.
The same thing again, if you were ferociously hungry and you saw that goat,
I loved it.
You had great relationship with it. Would you really kill it and eat it?
No.
Please, you say that now.
I probably would.
I probably would too. I don't know.
Eid Mubarak.
It just because when you are driven by hunger, you don't think of anything else. I mean, there are people like that can probably hold
how far desperate.
But majority does not.
Yeah.
It's not even just about like the different animals, like or a guinea pig. Like I wouldn't eat like. There's parts of the cow that are in quite a lot of dishes, like muggus, which is brain, or like I had,
which by the way tastes really good.
I can't do it. I can't even taste. I don't want to. No.
It's supposed to be the most nutritious part too.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I don't care. Like I can't. So a friend of mine who's a really good cook made liver, and I literally was like, oh, this looks good. And right next to it was another plate of just like beef shawarma, which kind of looked the same, but it was just like cut up pieces of beef, and I just swapped the two out. And he thought I was eating that. I was like, yeah, really good, but I just...
Man, so I got a crazy story, but like, so my wife's Bosnian, right? So we went to one of her friends' like a party. I forgot what purpose, whatever it was, but they were roasting a whole lamb. So it had the whole head and legs and all that stuff, but it was just skin, and they were just roasting it. And so after it was done cooking, they cut the meat and whatever, and they cut the head off. And then, so back home in Bosnia, they eat part of the head too. So they were sitting, so my wife and her friend were in the kitchen where they were preparing the thing. So I walk in, and my wife has a thing in the head in her hand, is biting it. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? But like, because over there, that's normal where you eat parts of the head, like the tongue and stuff like that. But they're just so barbaric. Like she's holding a skull and she's biting into it. Like, holy shit! This is, and I almost threw up because like it was just kind of hard to visualize my own wife eating something.
I got a story like that too. When we went to Ecuador, we went into the Amazon and we were with the native people, and they served us fish. Like an actual fish, it looked like raw, basically. So you got the eyeballs and stuff. Yeah. And I have all these friends who didn't eat it because they're like, I can't eat the eyeballs. I can't. I'm like, you do this. You're eating meat all the time. Right. And I was like questioning them. I'm like, what? Just because you see the eyeball now, you don't want to eat it?
I'm like that. I can't do it, and it looks like an actual living thing, or it looks like a creature that.
Yeah, so it just looked like a fish, basically. Yeah, it almost looked raw, but obviously they must have cooked it from the inside.
That's the thing, like that's what you miss here, I guess, the most is the fact of the freshness that you get, and being used to it. I mean, I'm used to it. I have no problem eating a chicken with the head and just being like, "Hey, eat it,"
We're soft
because I am brought into that environment where that raw. Rawness is there, Here, you don't get that experience because everything is so industrialized. Yeah. Everything just goes packaged properly the way you want it into a package into your home.
With a nice design.
And logo. Yeah.
And there was a point where this all changed because if you go back thousands of years, hunter-gatherers, when they did the hunt and they captured an animal, the leader of the group would first eat the heart, would eat the kidneys, the liver.
Yeah, the organs before the meat.
The organs, yes. The most nutrient-dense part of the animal. Yeah. And then the rest of the guys would eat the dark meat, the breast, and all that, of the animal or whatever you want to call it. But now, today, that's what we don't eat the nutrient-dense parts, at least not in the U.S.
Yeah. We eat the leftovers.
We think those are the leftovers now.
But I guess whatever tastes better is what we eat.
Yeah. I think same thing with the wolf too. Doesn't the wolf, when the leader of the pack catches the prey, they eat the heart first, and then the rest of the stuff is left over.
This one.
Well, I mean,
idea.
I think it's a common trend. Like if you think
alpha.
about it into packs, right? The alpha gets everything first. So
What about cloning? Like, can we just clone meat? Would that be
Like in a vat? You're talking about lab meat?
yeah? If we can't do
I
vat
don't
meat,
know.
can we just clone meat? So like,
Is that called cloning? What would it be called? Because in a vat,
No.
you kind of provide.
They grow it.
Yeah, they
No.
grow it in there.
what I'm saying is, if we can grow it, can we just cloning? Would that be a solution? But
Yeah.
I'm just thinking no, because that also would be a
But
living
Like
thing,
cloning
right?
an actual animal or just a part?
An animal.
just a
So they
It's
so
still
they
the
clone a
animal,
clone
though,
part.
right?
It'd
Yeah.
still be animal
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
I mean, cloning is also like a very controversial topic because I mean, the fact is that you're playing God again. You know, just
Right.
being
We're
able
always
to
playing
create
God.
another you.
Right.
If you were given the right, if you were given those genes and being able to, but then same thing, same concept, going down to the cellular level, you're manipulating something about that with
Right.
the conscience that you have. And if you can do that, I don't know, like if we weren't able to do that, like then the whole religion it goes out of the ballpark. It's just
Yeah.
makes no sense for us to live in those certain rules and not be able to question because we have gone so far to even manipulate certain aspects of ourselves.
True.
So why not go further?
What was the animal? It was like, I think it was a sheep.
That was the
named
first
Molly,
one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
that
just
we
sheep.
cloned in like the mid 90s.
97,
Yeah,
I
it
think,
was-
95.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know what that makes me wonder. So we always think of consciousness as this magical thing, right?
Right.
So when we created the sheep, that's self-aware. Not to our level, but it's still conscious.
Right.
So because there's a theory that consciousness just arises from a bunch of neurons being connected, and it just comes to be when something becomes increasingly complex.
Right.
And it's not something that's like magic. It's not like a soul. So doesn't that whole cloning of the sheep kind of prove that?
Well, I mean,
Well, cloning of sheep is just taking someone that had this
The
sequence of
exact
DNA
copy.
and then just replicating and growing it again, starting from birth. So it is.
It began from birth though.
Yeah, it's not like it's
Yeah.
grown in a tank or something. So it just
Yeah.
when the embryo, I guess, is introduced with the sperm, that the DNA that will shape the sheep is just copied from this sheep and plugged in. So like if we can take your DNA and we can plug it into a mother that's about to have,
Yeah.
so,
So
that
that's different.
so when
Yeah,
that kid
that's
grows up,
the-
it'll look just like you.
Right.
It might
so-
not think just like you because
Mhm.
it's based on scenarios that it lives out through its course of life, but at least the biology would be you.
yeah, I mean, that's also where CRISPR comes in again, where if two male or female male parent come in together where they actually have a baby and they both carry the same types of disease, CRISPR can come in and bring in a
Remove that.
third gene coming from a different partner or a friend or whatever, and be able to inject that gene and be able to cut the mutation and bring in that new gene from a normal
So then this,
normal healthy gene.
so this baby then will have
Three parents.
3 parents, right? Holy crap!
Yeah, because it has some parts of the healthy gene that came from a third person.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
So like now that
That'd be
we're
a first.
No, I mean, this is clear cut technology. It can happen now.
Yeah, what I'm saying, like that. So it'll be the first in our time in the universe, at least,
yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
this is the first time where is an organism being born by a three-way. It's gonna have 3 parents. I guess.
you mean
Yeah,
on,
3
you
parents.
mean on Earth, right? Not
On
the
Earth,
universe.
yeah, on Earth. Not on
Yeah, you
parallel.
can have 4 or 5, and depending on what genes you want from other people.
Yeah. So you can take a little bit of MJ's gene with
That's why
LeBron's
I think
genes.
that's why I think the whole idea of gene bank is so like cool, because you can save the right genes that didn't mutate in a long period of time where
Right.
something out there along the line did mutate. You can repair with the most amazing gene that you saved 20 million years ago and just say, hey, I can bring this new gene in because it's not there anymore.
So it's just from you can even save a hair, right, and take genes out of there. Or,
You can save genes, genetic code of anything in your
but like I
body.
mean, could we like if I wanted to save my gene, I could just take a sample of my hair, and as long as that's preserved, I have access to my.
Yeah, I
DNA?
mean, I think it's the same concept of freezing your cells. I mean, for reproductivity, it's the same concept.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's where the idea of gene banks comes to be. I mean, the whole Scientology, I think, is all about it.
Damn. But so it'd just be interesting how this changes the future, and hopefully it's for like the better, I guess. You know?
So how do you guys picture the future? I mean, like say
Beautiful.
300 years down the line where all this goes to the extreme, how do you see it turning out? I know it's very difficult to predict the future.
Yeah, for me, I always feel like information always will take you to the right direction. So if one, we go towards AI, or two, if we go towards implanting chips in our brain, the more information you have, I guess you will end up doing the right things in life. So I'm optimistic in that sense that whatever we can't predict will be in terms of the universe. What we're trying to pursue, for me, is always trying to pursue the truth, why we're here. And I think once we have this information, we're going to go further that direction. We might die in that process, because you can probably never know the truth, but I think we'll probably head towards that direction, because everything has a timeline. The universe has a timeline. Our sun, our planet, us, everything has an end. So it's just interesting how far we'll get towards exploring the universe and seeing where we came from.
I see two things. You're going to be a cyborg. You're going to be a completely half technology, nanotechnologies, all that implanted in you, making you a very efficient being. And secondly, as a civilization, will at least be it, because everything's about energy. Everything we do uses energy, maybe us ourselves or the resources we uses energy. And hopefully in that amount of time, we'll be a type 2 civilization on the Kardashev scale, harnessing our entire star's energy at least, and what that unlocks. That's my input.
Yeah, I think for me, it's very similar to what he just said. I don't know if that will be the future, but it's my hope that that's what happens, that we merge and we become androids.
And the bulls win.
Yeah.
And that's not that important, but
it's pretty important for some of us. Okay.
But yeah, hopefully what Stephen Hawking said doesn't come true, and that we go past all that.
Go past the great filter.
Yeah, I hope we're already past it. Some people say that we might be past it. I mean, there's no way to know at this point, but
maybe there's multiple.
But I do see
could have been the Black Plague.
Within that process, I do feel a lot of people are going to die. I think there are some extremes that are going to happen, and then it might set us back, but eventually we'll still move forward.
It's part of nature, right?
Yeah, it's just that we're just abusing our resources, and we're in the tipping waters. It seems like, with climate change and population growth and agriculture. But for me, I know my counterpart, Hasban, doesn't like the AI thing, but I feel AI is the future.
My counterpart?
Not my counterpart. I was
my life partner.
My life partner.
My life partner.
My nemesis.
No, but for me, I just don't. I look at it from a universal aspect. So I just feel like humans are here for a purpose, to serve for AI. Because we can even if we're going to travel in space, humans can do that, because we can't take water. We can take food. Our bodies are just not made for interstellar travel. It's just
you
that radiation.
Don't think we'll merge with that?
Yeah,
so become one in a way.
I mean, so
that's why I said we're gonna be cyborgs.
Yeah, so we'll leave our bodies and we'll transition into being robots, and then but then the ones that we create after that will be pure AIs. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think in a sense,
we have flaws.
In a sense, we'll just evolve into AIs, and we'll become, we just go from single cell organism to machines.
And then there'll be another missing link.
Yeah, the human beings.
Yeah.
And those AIs will go on to explore the universe, because they could be just powered by sun. They won't need water, food.
Time out, dude.
What?
Creates their own
I had
energy.
a crazy thing that just happened in my head. I want to share with the rest of you.
It's called a thought.
Your 1 gigabyte of RAM.
Hey, man, it made me fired. I don't want to hype this, but what if we ourselves, you know how we say that there might have been other old ancient civilizations that might have really advanced further? Who knows? What if they created us and they all died out or something, or
they left Earth?
All right, that did live up to the hype.
And just like and then there's a missing link, and then now we're trying to come up and evolve us further, and now there's gonna be another missing link.
Yeah, you can say.
Did you follow me? Because it had it in my head, and I couldn't.
Yeah, you can say that we left Earth and now we're doing interstellar space, but something happens
Are you reaching home?
So something happens where we know that our timeline is coming to an end, that we can go drop the seeds of life into planets and hope. As we're traveling into space, that find planets that how we had lives. As we're going along the way, just plant the seeds of light, and then let the nature take its course. If they might somehow evolve to the point of our being. So if we die, then we can hope that this plan of life that we plan on this planet grows to a point that we did,
Right.
and continues that direction.
Right.
You know?
I guess the one thing that is certain is that the future is going to be indistinguishable. Or no, it's going to be really different than what it is today.
Always is, right?
And the only thing that's certain is uncertainty. And so you were saying that your partner in crime doesn't agree with you. Do you have a rebuttal to what he was saying?
Nah, I kind of agree with. No,
You can't do that. That's not your role.
Yeah.
You gotta disagree.
all right. Let me play my role. I think like so I think I have a more dystopian view. Like I was trying to kind of mention earlier that things are happening so fast. So I feel like it's a race between adapting and technology like evolving. And I feel like we are not as adapted to that technology. We can't really predict what's going to happen next because we're so stuck. Obviously, and then what we have predicted next is AI. And then when we talk about the intelligence of AI, it seems like we're going to be gone. So our best hope is to become cyborg, so half man, half machine. I don't think that's a great option because you have to do it. It's almost like that's the only positive outcome. Do you get what I'm saying? The other outcome is that we're dead. That we're all gone,
and we never let something go forward from us.
Yeah. So it's just such a it's such a risk. That's all I keep saying. And with any risk, I mean, if you really think about how humans become, this is the good part of life. Like think about where we're living in relation to a universe. We're living in such a great time. There's no war yet or anything like that, and we're living in this like magical period. And everything tells us that it's not going to last like this, or something might go wrong. Well, it could be anything. It could be lack of resources, like water. It could be anything. It could be an asteroid. If an asteroid hits, right, and we all lose power, we're talking about like Walking Dead.
I think our main goal should be that how we talk about knowledge and passing that knowledge on. And being able to climb on the shoulders of giants, meaning like, they did this work and now you're going to take it from there and go forward. We need to make sure that we keep this knowledge for the next people so they can stand on the shoulders of giants and move it forward. And what a loss the Library of Alexandria was. I know, but man, I just wonder what was in there, man.
Yeah. We're going into another podcast now.
Yeah, sorry. All right, guys.
I wanted to hear, do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I agree and I disagree, and there are reasons for that. I mean, I do think that artificial intelligence will definitely take over us, and there will be a point we think we know how to control it, but we may not, and because we always rush into making solutions without understanding the consequences, and that's it's human nature, I think. And
we're reactionary.
We're reactionaries. We're not, even though we tend to perceive ourselves to be thoughtful creatures, but we're always striving to always be better, and that strive can take us downhill. But at the same time, I also think that if over time we maybe be able to intellectually think through these things, if you really maybe there's an era that comes around and things change where there is a big movement where people are evolving to not religiously believe in God, but religiously believe in, into each other and communication and technology. And maybe that will take us somewhere down where we can control and be able to manipulate what we created. But, I mean, either way, I won't be here, so I'm going to live it to the fullest.
Well, you might be. There's some...
Unless Cripster comes in and just modifies me.
Well, there is research, and this is from the same people who are talking about AI, that if you can live for 30 more years, you might be able to live 100 more years or 500 more years. I forgot the number. But if you can live 30 more years, 30 more years is pretty realistic for any of us in this room. For most people,
we already went from 40s, 50s to what we're now 100. We've doubled it.
See, the thing is that you can create a lot of organisms just by being able to do electrical movements, mechanical institutions where you can build it inside yourself. Yep. But brain is something that is unreachable right now.
Well, it's becoming more and more reachable, though.
It's more reachable, but it's
more than that has ever been.
Because it has involvement based on adaptability, not on just technology, but on our environment and what we do with our ecosystem. And that changes. Technology can change because we're making it change. But ecosystem, I don't know. We don't really control that from our conscience. We control that from our actions. And I don't know how our actions will be.
Beautiful. Ali,
Amazing.
any final words?
Yeah, I had a lot
Final
to say, but I'm kind of like taken back by what she said.
Hey, I just
like-
wanted to share this because it's just about the brain. I was having
closing
this
statement.
I was having this conversation with
Are you
Jay.
in a hurry?
Yeah, I'm super, like, my
You
friends
can
are
bounce.
waiting.
I gotta take a leak.
All right, well, maybe I can
hurry
say,
Me
I'll
too.
save the story. It's like
Hurry
a
up.
good one. I feel like we can expand on it like crazy.
Damn, I had some good things.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna lose. All right.
So are we done? That was pretty good.
Yeah, I guess.
No, Ali, come on. Let's just go. Come on.
No, I forgot what I was gonna say.
All right, then.
All right, then that will be-
Everything comes to an end, I guess.
Yep.
All
There's
right, so we're
Or it's
choice.
just the beginning.
Oh yeah.
No, do not say that to Ali. Do not.
Wait. How about we? Because we all answered, we gave long answers. So are you looking to a utopian society, or are you utopian or dystopian?
I'm not sure.
Not sure, Ali.
I mean, utopian. Yeah, of course.
Do you think technology will lead us to a utopia or a dystopia? I guess.
I think like again, go utopia. That's my guess.
I don't believe in a utopia.
So you're dystopian.
Yeah.
I lean towards a dystopian.
Me too.
All right, man.
I lost, guys. I live in a dystopian.
All right, that was awesome.
Podcast. Thank you for coming here.
No,
That
thank you for
you.
having me. This was a great discussion. I absolutely loved it. I'll definitely tell more people and hopefully bring more intelligent people
Yeah.
here.
Appreciate it. And also,
But you were a great start. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
no problem. Thanks.
thank you for everyone that's been listening to us and supporting us as we
listening.
started. Yeah, and just spread the light. If you guys enjoy it at home, or if you guys find it useful, please also find other people to share it with.
And like our Facebook page.
Yes.
Please.
Thanks, guys. Peace out.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.